I became a planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126, Old Acquaintance. The sacrificial activity that made Guo Sen feel tormented and embarrassed finally ended after the singing stopped. The dozens of people from the White Wolf tribe did not go directly into the tribe next door, but followed a wide road trampled on the grassland into the forest. They were led by guards carrying long spears and bows, and they seemed very nervous when they entered the forest. Guo Sen was a little confused. He scanned the creatures within a few kilometers and found that there were not so many animals and insects, let alone wild beasts. Are you so nervous? It took a long time for the group to return to the tribe. Night was approaching, and the white wolves who were in the smelting plant, picking up ores and making pottery did not return for too long. After the white wolves closed the heavy door, they collectively went to the square in the center of the tribe. In the center of the place were the priests. The status of these guys seemed to be the highest in the tribe. Guo Sen looked at the large number of white wolves sitting on the ground and once again admired the 40 white wolves. Heroes. At that time, I thought you might be wiped out, but I didn't expect that this huge tribe would have more than 10,000 people after endless growth. It only took 300 years. Awesome. Guo Sen looked at the priests and the old man who had been bragging about Edmund, the god of war, next to the statue, and he was ready. What he had to do was to make these white wolf people gradually forget the sentence "we are going to show off." Aren't you carrying out the will to fight? Don't you like passion? Do you like something more childish? Then, replace it with something more passionate, more childish, and more suitable for boosting morale and raising the will to fight. However, Guo Sen is still waiting for the opportunity. The reason why these white wolves are gathered together now and do nothing is not simply to have a meal, chat, and drink water, but there should be something more important. Wait until they have said almost everything, and then implement your own ideas. Guo Sen thought so, watching more than 10,000 white wolf tribes sitting on the ground around a huge bonfire. After the priests signaled everyone to be quiet, the entire tribe also quieted down at the same time. My people. We established the tribe, ruled this forest, and became the masters of the vast grassland. We should be the ones who command everything and destroy everything under the protection of the god of war Edmund. The white wolf people were silent and listened quietly. The old leader was silent for a while and looked around again. And those barbaric aliens with black fur always destroy everything we have when we let our guard down. Black fur? Barbaric aliens? Guo Sen listened to these descriptions and suddenly felt familiar. Could it be that? Impossible. Those guys should have been wiped out long ago. They attacked our means of transportation, destroyed the furnace that melted the stones that we spent who knows how long to make, and destroyed those fragile tools again and again. HMM. Guo Sen listened to this sentence and seemed to understand the craftsmanship that mixed the new and the old and was full of disharmony. Purely transported to the riverside by hand, still using a disposable primitive blast furnace to burn meteorite iron ore, using an extremely crude blasting device to blow air. All of these were destroyed by the barbaric aliens and therefore not seen. It is not that the White Wolf tribe does not have these technologies. Originally, I wanted to correct and guide the civilization tree of the White Wolf tribe, but now it seems that there is no need, as long as those aliens are not there. Today, Sally, the fastest hunter in our tribe, brought good news. He lost his way while chasing the Camu beast and crossed the mountain. As a result, he suddenly found the gathering place of those barbaric aliens. Fight. The white wolves suddenly roared collectively. Damn, I was shocked. Guo Sen was a little annoyed by the sudden howling. However, have they found the nest of the aliens? Could it be that the next step will be? In the era of the god of war Edmund, these aliens have driven our tribe into despair, and now, they have come from a distant place, coveting our land, and illusionally wanting to kill us again. What should we do in response? War. 10,000 White Wolf tribe members roared in unison. That's right. We must completely eliminate this threat, drive them away and eliminate them. We are going to pretend Guo Sen chose not to listen to the chorus of tens of thousands of people. This is simply a public execution of tens of thousands of people. He looked away, looking for the gathering place of the aliens in black fur mentioned by the old priest of the White Wolf tribe in the night. The mountain that the old guy pointed to in the distance just now is actually a volcano. The old guy said that the hunter named Sally found it after he got lost and passed it. Guo Sen's sight immediately reached there. This volcano also looked familiar to him. It seemed to be the place where the old liar chief of the Black Wolf tribe picked up Sopher. This Black Wolf tribe may also be the same group that continued to harass the White Wolf tribe 300 years later. Guo Sen had an assumption that the Black Wolf tribe that occupied the White Wolf tribe was just one of the barbaric tribes. He did not look carefully for the Black Wolf tribe in other places at the beginning. Perhaps they were hiding in the jungle and valley, slowly accumulating strength in the dark, expanding the tribe, and looking for an opportunity to destroy the White Wolf tribe. His sight continued to move forward. He unexpectedly discovered a Black Wolf tribe in a valley, using countless rubble as a barrier and the ground as a mat. If Guo Sen did not have a visual system that could see clearly at night, he would definitely miss this building hidden in the darkness. The Black Wolf tribe has not used fire so far. Compared with the White Wolf tribe that almost illuminated the sky in that area, the Black Wolf tribe seemed to be more adapted to the darkness. To Guo Sen's surprise, there seemed to be nearly 3,000 Black Wolf tribe members living in this extremely simple tribe. How could their number become so large? When Guo Sen wanted to continue to take a closer look, he heard howling sounds from an area not far from here. He shifted his sights and found another tribe. No, there seems to be more over there. 1, 2. Shit. Guo Sen counted and found that there were 6 tribes of the same size in this valley with dense forests. And almost every one of them had a huge population of nearly 3,000 people. The distance between them was not far, and it seemed that they were not in a hostile state. They were more like scattered tribes separated from the same huge tribe. However, their number was completely beyond Guo Sen's expectations. In comparison, the White Wolf clan with a population of 10,000 seemed nothing at all. Chapter 127, Blood Boiling, 4th update. Please subscribe. History is so similar. The nearly 20,000 Black Wolf tribe members once again outnumbered the White Wolf tribe members. Although they did not make the population ratio as exaggerated as their ancestors, the number of 20,000 people was indeed very scary. The Black Wolf tribe seemed to like the night very much, and were more adapted to it. Guo Sen carefully observed the appearance of the Black Wolf tribe members, and found that they were almost the same as in his memory. They still had blood-red pupils and a black hairy appearance. However, unlike the White Wolf tribe, they did not know how to use animal skins as clothing to keep warm, and they did not have the so-called sense of shame. As for weapons, they were still a pile of broken stone guns, which were not even a little bit better than the meteorite guns, 3-shot bows and broadswords of the White Wolf tribe. For more than 300 years, they were still as backward and primitive as before. However, Guo Sen would not choose to help the White Wolf tribe to eliminate these Black Wolf people like before. At that time, he did not have a correct concept of treating intelligent creatures correctly. Survival of the fittest. Guo Sen is more familiar with this word than ever. However, at the beginning, his understanding of this word was only the most advanced civilization has the value of existence. After touring the 9 continents, his mentality became more mature, and he thought more. Now his understanding is only the luckiest civilization has the value of existence. The speed of civilization development should not be the reason for choosing which side to survive and which side to disappear. The one who is more adapted to this planet should be the last one to survive. On one side is the advanced and intelligent White Wolf tribe, which has all kinds of basic civilizations. On the other side is the ignorant and backward Black Wolf tribe, which still cannot use fire even after 300 years, and can only conquer the forest by numbers and barbarity. Who is the luckiest one? Under the silver light of the big white dumpling, with several howls, dozens or hundreds of black werewolves came out of each tribe. After they came out, they gathered on a small open space. This also proves that the 6 Black Wolf tribes are not really hostile. The nearly 2,000 Black Wolf tribe members were not at peace. Even though they were not hostile to each other, their relationship did not seem to be harmonious. They started fighting soon. However, with the arrival of a tall black wolf, they became quiet again. Let's go. Just like before. Destruction. His voice sounded unusually sharp and harsh, but it had an inexplicable deterrence. More than 2,000 black wolves followed the leader wolf and shuttled through the dense forest in the dark night. Guo Sen looked in the direction they were going. As long as they crossed the volcano, they would reach the territory of the White Wolf tribe. Looking at these messy Black Wolf tribe members, Guo Sen suddenly remembered what the White Wolf tribe said, that these Black Wolf tribe members were destroying their various facilities and tools. He suddenly had an explanation. Would the Black Wolf tribe have always wanted to test the White Wolf tribe, so they sent a small number of troops like now? They seemed to have been running wild, attacking, and destroying on the White Wolf tribe's territory, and they did not take any more actions. However, what did the White Wolf tribe think of the Black Wolf tribe? Guo Sen turned his sight back to the White Wolf tribe. Here, it seemed that the chorus that Guo Sen found very boring had just finished. My people, we can no longer tolerate the harassment and destruction of those foreign races. Tomorrow, we will select the best warriors in the tribe and form a legion to fight against them. The old leader raised his arms, his voice hoarse. Fight. Fight. The roar of the White Wolf tribe was still as childish as before. Okay, here it comes again. Guo Sen also knew what the old leader was going to say next. However, he wanted the old leader to say something else. The idea moved. After saying the word we, the leader fell silent. The whole tribe suddenly fell into an awkward silence. The White Wolf people were ready to follow the slogan "We are going to show off," but no one dared to shout it out now, and they were all choked up. This holy word of the god of war Edmund should not be said too much. The leader suddenly said this, and everyone looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. I have a more suitable word to inspire our fighting spirit and make us stronger in the battle. The leader raised his arms and looked at the big white dumpling in the middle of the night sky. All the white wolves stood up from the ground. They all had a feeling that the holy words that the leader would say next would affect the war they were going to fight next. Like the leader, they all raised their arms and looked at the night sky. Take my sword. The first sword of China. The White Emperor's holy sword. Follow me with the sword. The leader's throat was hoarse, shouting this slogan that they had never heard before, but after hearing it, the blood in their bodies was completely heated and boiled. Take my sword. The first sword of China. The White Emperor's holy sword. Follow me with the sword. The white wolves went crazy. They roared this sentence again and again, and everyone was very happy. Guo Sen was very satisfied. Well, since you are so passionate and a little funny, then take this sentence that can feel the strong fighting spirit, whether you listen to it or say it as your new slogan. Strength and glory. I'm for everyone. Everyone is for me. Although it is a sentence translated by here, its meaning is indeed passionate enough, and it is enough to replace the sentence of their own black history and become the new slogan of the White Wolf clan. However, it is indeed stupid enough. The confused leader was stunned for a while after Guo Sen's thoughts were lifted, but when he heard thousands of people shouting this sentence, he was finally infected and howled along. Okay. Guo Sen was even more satisfied. Is this considered a successful brainwashing? The White Wolf clan is really easy to be fooled. However, Guo Sen was a little worried. What the leader said about selecting the best warriors in the tribe and going to the Black Wolf clan's tribe was definitely not a joke. However, even if the entire tribe went up, there would only be more than 10,000 people. The other side has a total population of 20,000 people. Moreover, unlike the White Wolf clan, Guo Sen felt that any one of the Black Wolf clan could fight alone. Even if their weapons were backward, they could give the White Wolf clan a hard time just by piling up people. Well, the White Wolf clan has advanced weapons, including sharp meteorite spears that can even kill the giant paw beast in a very short time. They have bows that can fire 3 arrows at the same time, and long swords that are almost invincible in close combat. In addition, the will to fight that has always been in the hearts and souls of the White Wolf clan, and the new slogan that just made their blood boil. Can the White Wolf clan achieve the same result as last time in this battle with the Black Wolf clan? Guo Sen waits and sees. However, he will definitely not help this time. Chapter 128, The Better One. 5th update. Please subscribe. Guo Sen discovered one thing. The development of tribal civilization seems to be related to war. The purpose of war is mostly related to food or other similar desires. There is no war that is provoked for no reason, and of course there will be no absolute peace. As long as it is a living thing, it will definitely be tit for tat for some reason. If they look the same, then the best one must be decided. For example, the tribal war among the lizardmen. If the races are different, then they will attack the alien race together. For example, the generational hatred between the white wolf tribe and the black wolf tribe now. The final result of the war is only victory and defeat. There is no third possibility between the white wolf tribe and the black wolf tribe. They are too different. Either the white wolf tribe will be destroyed, or the black wolf tribe will be destroyed. Otherwise, this fight will not stop. It was late at night. The white wolf tribe did not completely relax their vigilance. They ranged up to 400 sentries on the several meter thick city wall, and each of them was equipped with the most sophisticated 3-shot bow as a weapon. The white wolf tribe, which had closed its gates, never forgot the threat from the black wolf tribe. When Guo Sen locked onto the black wolf tribe before, he found that this ability had evolved a little bit. It was necessary to know the name of the tribe or specific person not long ago, but now it is completely unnecessary. Just recite it in your heart. A deep golden halo surrounded the black wolf tribe and the more than 2,000 guys who came out of there and seemed to be sneaking in. The sneak attack team of the black wolf tribe moved quickly in the dark. In the dark night, they kept shuttling through the jungle, crossing streams, and climbing up the hillside. As the night deepened, the big white dumpling had gradually shifted from the center of the night sky. The sneak attack team of the black wolf tribe had already climbed over the volcano and came to the territory belonging to the white wolf tribe. To Guo Sen's surprise, this group of people did not go directly to the largest tribe, but sneaked to the altar at the bottom of the mountain farther away. And next to the altar was another tribe of white wolves. Guo Sen aimed his sight at the tribe and suddenly found that it was pitch black here. There was no white wolf guard walking on the wide and tall wooden wall. There was no white wolf living in this tribe. Looking more carefully, Guo Sen suddenly felt that the buildings here seemed a bit dilapidated and decayed. Except for the new wooden wall, the rest seemed to have been abandoned for hundreds of years. The huge cave was also dead silent. There was no living white wolf in the entire tribe, and there was no trace of them living here. Could it be that the white wolf just surrounded this place with wooden walls and preserved it as something like a historical museum? Guo Sen couldn't understand it. This tribe should be able to support 2,000 or 3,000 people, and there were many prey nearby. Why didn't they use it? The thinking of the white wolf tribe really made him unpredictable. However, what did the black wolf tribe want to do here? They quickly gave Guo Sen the answer. The barbecue and fruits that were originally placed on the altar were almost instantly snatched by the black wolf clan that swarmed in and screamed. It was really too many wolves and too little meat. After they scrambled for it, they even started fighting again. The 2,000 Black Wolf clan members did not stand by to watch the fight, but collectively got into the fight. Damn it. Guo Sen was speechless. This legion was too disorganized and undisciplined. In the end, it was the tallest Black Wolf man who stood up. Guo Sen gave him a name to distinguish him. Black General. This guy was obviously the leader of this legion. This extremely fierce guy even rushed directly into the chaotic crowd and instantly stabbed the throats of the 2 Black Wolf clan members who fought the hardest with stone spears. Exclamation mark. The other Black Wolf clan members who were originally noisy heard the screams and saw the blood all over the ground, and instantly no one dared to move. What are we doing here? Black General kicked the 2 corpses and pulled out the stone spears that were stuck in their throats. A large amount of blood from the broken wounds soaked the fur, gradually dyeing it dark and blending into the moonlit night. This time, all the Black Wolf tribe members put away their original rebellious nature. In front of this cruel and ruthless Black General, no one dared to say a word or move a bit. Can you use the energy you just used to fight for these things to break through their tribe? The Black General grabbed the neck of the dead body under his feet and directly grabbed it. With a crisp sound of catcher, the giant hands crushed the neck bones. In the dark night, there was no other sound except the sound of insects. Every member of the Black Wolf tribe was sitting on pins and needles and dared not breathe. Their fear was based on the deterrence of this tall fellow tribesman. The Black General did not seem to want to stop. He grabbed the completely twisted neck of the corpse with one hand and grabbed the body of the corpse with the other hand and used both hands to force it. Several unbearable tearing sounds continued to be heard. He pulled the head of the corpse directly off the body, fighting for food. Then, eat this first. He roared and threw the head into the crowd. The head was thrown out in an arc in the darkness and fell into the arms of a black werewolf. He was so scared that he quickly threw it to the ground. Eat it. General Black ordered again. The Black Wolf tribe seemed to be stabbed by something collectively and began to scramble for the head. And the Black General threw the headless body into the crowd. He himself was gnawing on another corpse, and his pale fangs were soaked with the blood of his own tribe. The extremely wild and absurd behavior of the Black Wolf tribe made Guo Sen think for a moment that they were still in the stage of unenlightened beasts, instead of being intelligent creatures that can use stone spears and have language. The overly subjective thoughts of the past came up again. Are they worthy of living on their own sphere? There has been no progress in the past 300 years. Except for the fact that there are more people, they have almost no advantages. Compared with the White Wolf tribe civilization that has gradually matured and continued to move forward, what are they? However, this idea soon vanished. Not all advanced civilizations will defeat backward civilizations. If the Black Wolf clan can really defeat the White Wolf clan and become the master of this howling land continent, then they will be a more successful species. Isn't what Guo Sen wants a more powerful intelligent creature? Since these two races will eventually fight, then let's see which one is the more powerful race between them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129 Light and Darkness. After sharing the corpses of their companions, the Black Wolf tribe members were freed from the contradictory feelings of madness and fear and gradually calmed down. To them, this Black General was a more terrifying existence than anything else. He was brutal, fierce, bloodthirsty, and liked to solve everything in the most extreme way. In front of the Black General, there were only two concepts, yes and no. If you obey, you will eat meat, but if you don't obey, you will become meat and be eaten by him. The leaders of the 6 tribes, no matter which one, obeyed the orders of this terrifying figure who truly ruled everything, and no one dared to disobey any of his words. Will you rush to eat this kind of thing again this time? The Black General held an orange fist-sized fruit that he had picked up in the previous riot and looked at the Black Wolf people who were already kneeling on the ground. No one dared to speak. They felt that if they said even one wrong word, they would be shot to death by the Black General, and then the body would be turned into food for the rest of the people. Pop. The fruit instantly exploded in the Black General's hand. The juice dripped onto the ground. In the dark night that had become extremely quiet, everyone didn't even dare to breathe. I'm asking you. Yes. Don't dare. The Black Wolf people shouted out in a hurry, scrambling to be the first to be chosen by General Black to vent his anger. Okay, this place is not far from their tribe. We have destroyed a lot of their strange things before, but this time, we don't need to do this. The Black Wolf's tone became calmer. He looked up at the huge statue, carved on the mountain behind him. He suddenly felt that this huge and mysterious thing seemed to have something that could shock his manic heart. The darkness suitable for our tribe is about to pass. We should find a more suitable time to attack their tribe. General Black pointed to the tribe surrounded by a solid wooden wall. There are no people of Fizz here. It is very suitable for us to avoid the scorching light. Yes. The wolf howls were unusually uniform, and none of them dared to raise any objections. Well, let's start now and open up the passage to here. I want the fastest speed. Do you hear me? General Black roared and looked at the horizon. A faint light had emerged from the distance of the forest, and the darkness belonging to their tribe gradually dissipated. The journey consumed a lot of their time, and the commotion just now also delayed a lot of their efforts. We must hurry up. Soon, dozens of black wolves who were best at digging holes dug several deep pits with a diameter of nearly 2 meters next to the wooden wall. They dug fresh soil from the ground with great skill and continuously transported it out of the cave. In the process, they were also moving forward. Digging holes was the specialty of these black wolves. They soon completed the underground passage connecting the inside and outside of the tribe. Okay, we have to stay in there until the next darkness comes. Get in quickly. General Black commanded these black wolves, and there was no doubt about his words. The black wolves hurriedly got into the cave, and it didn't take them too long before they all got in. After General Henry ordered several black wolves to block those holes, he went into the huge cave with them. The stars finally rose from the east, gradually shining their light on this land. Light and heat continued to penetrate into this tribe that should have been deserted, trying to move further into the cave. However, this was in vain. The black wolves seemed to represent darkness without light, and even wherever they went, they were filled with fear of not being able to see their fingers in front of their faces. Guo Sen watched all this quietly. He suddenly felt that this was a bit ironic. 300 years ago, the 40 people of the White Wolf tribe who were forced into a desperate situation fought back against the Black Wolves, who were more than 10 times their own number, and destroyed them. At this time, the Black Wolf tribe occupied this place again, and seemed to want to wait for an opportunity here, to prepare to attack the White Wolf tribe. I wonder if the Black Wolf tribe would sneer in their hearts like themselves, if they knew that this was the place where their ancestors died, especially the Black General. Guo Sen felt that this fierce and brutal guy, who was also full of strong deterrence and leadership, led a Black Wolf army of more than 2,000 people, which might cause considerable trouble to the White Wolf clan. The subsequent actions of the White Wolf clan also increased the probability of such trouble and the final serious consequences. Guo Sen still remembered that those who could not stand the harassment of the Black Wolf clan would select the best warriors on this new day to form an expedition to the Black Wolf clan. What kind of sparks would be created by the surprise attack of the Black Wolf clan and the White Wolf clan, who chose to go on an expedition under extremely coincidental circumstances? Guo Sen left his sight from the tribe that had been completely occupied by the Black Wolf clan and came to the White Wolf clan again. In this tribe, tens of thousands of tribesmen had gathered in the huge square like last night, as if they had never left. My people, today is the day for us to select the best warriors in our tribe and attack those hateful alien tribes. The old leader's voice was hoarse, as if he was too excited yesterday. After shouting countless high-pitched war roars, he really couldn't recover. However, after he said this, Guo Sen also saw the strong fighting spirit blooming in the golden pupils of the White Wolves. Alas, this group of warlike dangerous element who have implemented the fighting spirit into their souls. Those aliens with black fur are cruel and terrifying. They always appear suddenly in the dark, kill our people, destroy our tools, and make it impossible for us to live as usual. We endure. The old leader's voice trembled, and his body trembled with it, but they will not stop, nor will they give up their actions, just like their ancestors did. Unless they completely kill us, they will never stop. The White Wolves were silent, but this silence seemed to contain extremely powerful energy. They recalled the myth of the god of war Edmund, which was passed down from generation to generation by the leaders, and the suffering brought to them by the cruel foreigners who looked like them. They finally couldn't bear it anymore. Fight. The roar shook the sky. The terrible shadow will eventually disappear. The voice of the old leader of the White Wolf tribe gradually changed from trembling and angry to steady and gentle. The gentle light of the stars sprinkled on his face. The golden light was endless, like fire. The darkness will eventually pass, and a new day will come like the past. The light will become brighter. He pointed his hands to the sky and roared, "Either fight, or die. Either fight, or die." Chapter 130. Something seems wrong. After the earth-shaking roar, the pupils of every White Wolf tribe member flashed with an unusually resolute light. The will to fight, for the White Wolf tribe, itself represents a very important meaning. 300 years ago, their ancestors relied on this power to defeat the powerful Black Wolf tribe. Although Guo Sen's own activeness accounted for a lot of important proportions in it. But if the White Wolf tribe did not have the strong will to fight in desperation, then no matter what Guo Sen did at that time, the White Wolf tribe would also be the tribe that was destroyed. The desire for life is not to beg, but to fight bravely. Now, this will to fight is also flowing and inherited in the blood of the White Wolf tribe from generation to generation. Take my sword. The first sword of China. The White Emperor's holy sword. Fly the sword and follow me. They shouted the new slogan again. Guo Sen was very satisfied. Very good. Just like that. Use this sentence instead. We are going to pretend. Damn. Haven't you forgotten it yet? Question mark? Guo Sen was speechless. Why didn't the new one replace the old one? I even found a person who is not easy to remember. Just for. Never mind. Guo Sen felt that it was only a matter of time before the new replaced the old. It should be, right. Under Guo Sen's silent gaze, the old leader of the White Wolf tribe began to review all the people in the tribe. Guo Sen was also analyzing at the same time. Since they were going to fight, the women and children with relatively weak physical strength needed to be eliminated. This was also to ensure that the tribe could continue to exist in case of an emergency. The second was workers with skills. Whether it was smelting meteorite iron or firing pottery, they were all talents in the tribe who mastered the complex craftsmanship and could not be lost casually. In addition, there were hunters who had gone hunting specifically. The tribe's food inventory was not much, and when the large army set off, there might not even be any dried meat left in the tribe. Their existence was quite necessary. Finally, there were the guards who were originally responsible for guarding the tribe. Their existence was to prevent sneak attacks from the black werewolves. With this calculation, Guo Sen felt that at least half of the people had come down. If I were the leader of the White Wolf tribe, I would definitely choose the right candidates in this way. However, when Guo Sen saw that the leader had selected nearly 1,000 wolf cubs and mother wolves, he thought the old guy was joking. What's going on? What if you all die? These women and children are the future. You should be more clear-headed. Then, the leader picked out nearly 7,000 troops in the midst of the roar of the mountains and the sea. Damn. What's this? What's going on? This is not to select elite soldiers, but to select non-elite soldiers, right? Most of them were picked out, leaving less than 4,000 people, basically the old and too young, and the priests that Guo Sen had seen before. Among them, there are more than 30 hunters and more than 400 guards. Are you kidding? This is considered a full out, right? This is considered going all out, right? Guo Sen expressed full doubts about the ability of this leader. But thinking carefully, this old guy might not be that good. The food stock of the tribe is too scarce, and their tribe has such a large population. Faced with the harassment and destruction of the Black Wolf tribe, they actually chose to tolerate it again and again. They carved such a large statue on the remote mountainside, made a decent altar, and even went to worship from time to time. However, the old tribe with a large cave next to it chose to close it, without sending any guards to defend it, and did not relocate any residents to disperse the population pressure. No one was stationed in either the smelter or the pottery workshop. Looking at it this way, have these white wolves been living too comfortably? Guo Sen couldn't help but begin to doubt their fighting power. Compared with the martial lizardmen, these guys have not seen training warriors in the tribe, practicing formations, etc. Now, they want to come out in full force to attack the Black Wolf tribe who live in extremely difficult areas and eat raw meat and drink blood. Moreover, their intelligence is still wrong. The Black Wolf tribe does not have only one tribe, but 6 at the same time. Not to mention a few thousand people that you can deal with just 7,000 people, but nearly 20,000 people. In addition, the 2,000 sneak attack death squads led by General Henry will kill the White Wolf tribe at night after the White Wolf tribe sets out. Shit, the White Wolf tribe, are they going to be wiped out this time? Guo Sen analyzed for a long time and came to this conclusion. Even if your weapons are strong and your fighting spirit is high, but your home is stolen, and you find that your numbers are far inferior when you arrive at the enemy's territory, all of you are GG. There is no doubt about this. Unless someone can stop this confused old man who can only shout slogans to boost morale and make strategic mistakes. At this moment, Chief, I want to say something. A young White Wolf tribe member suddenly stood up from the selected legion. Guo Sen thought that this guy seemed a little familiar. He seemed to be the hunter who fought the most with a few tufts of red hair on his head when hunting the giant paw beast. Red-haired rabbit, I don't think you have anything to say in this situation. Don't you know that we are going to fight to the death with those hateful aliens? The old leader was extremely angry at the speech of this young man who ruined the atmosphere. He just wanted to boost the already high morale and make a few more pre-war mobilizations. How dare Horsley, a hunter, disrupt his plan at this time? If he can't give any reason, he must give this bastard. Of course I know about this. After all, I'm in the team that is going to attack. Red-haired rabbit seemed to be very relaxed. He walked out of the team and walked towards the old leader. Go back to your team. The 20 or so priests who were with the old leader collectively pointed their meteorite guns at this boy who seemed to be a little frivolous and too casual. Okay, I won't go forward. Put down the gun. How about it? I just want to tell the leader what some of us think. Red-haired rabbit raised his hands and stepped back a few steps. Ideas. That's not. However, before the leader finished speaking, the crowd suddenly became agitated. Leader, listen to what the red-haired boy has to say. Leader, we have questions too. Yes, is this right? The originally serious and quiet legion, like a pebble thrown into a pool of clear water, the voices supporting the red-haired Horsley, as well as voices with various ideas, burst out together. Quiet, quiet. The more than 20 priests held up the meteorite spears and waved them in front of the crowd, exhausted. Guo Sen raised his non-existent eyebrow. Oh no. Chapter 131 The Chaotic Tribe. The White Wolf tribe was less united than Guo Sen had imagined. Originally, before this red-haired rabbit came out, the team was still very quiet. Now it seems that they are just waiting for someone to bravely act as a fuse. After the red-haired rabbit took on this important task and said this, everyone's different opinions on this military action, or more accurately, dissent, also broke out, challenging the authority of the tribal leader. This white wolf man named Rabbit, although he looks a little frivolous and careless, seems to have made such a bold move after careful consideration. Guo Sen closely followed the development here. If the original White Wolf tribe practices were followed, I'm afraid the probability of all of them being killed would be quite high. But if this red-haired rabbit could propose some suggestions for change, then this tribe, which should have been wiped out by the Black Wolf tribe 300 years ago, could avoid such a tragedy 300 years later. Guo Sen just looked at it and found that those who seemed to have objections actually only accounted for more than 1,000 people. The expressions on the faces of others seemed to be more confused. He suddenly had a bold idea. Could it be that they were colluded by red-haired rabbit before, and they collectively launched an attack at this time? Silence. Silence. The priests waved their weapons, trying to maintain the commotion caused by these people, and wanted them not to approach the tribal leader, but all this seemed to be in vain. The leader retreated again and again. He did not expect that such a situation would happen at this time. Red-haired rabbit. Chief, I'm here. Rabbit was more than 10 meters away from the leader, but did not move forward. He still had that frivolous smile on his face. At the moment he spoke, those who were originally noisy stopped making noises, and the tribe returned to peace. This also indirectly confirmed Guo Sen's thoughts. What do you want to say? The leader panted. He had led this tribe for a long time. He did not expect that at this age, he would be forced to this point by a kid who was not very conspicuous at ordinary times. Haha, chief, you are finally willing to listen to me? Red-haired rabbit still did not move forward at all. He just put his arm down. It's like this, Lord Chief, I think, should we cancel this expedition? What? The chief couldn't believe that this kid actually said such a so-called proposal. Cancel the expedition? Then what did he do before? Lord Chief, you can think carefully. Is our expedition too aggressive and risky? Red-haired rabbit suddenly said this, not caring about the other party's already manic eyes. Where is the risk? Isn't it clear to everyone? If we let those aliens go on like this, what will happen? The leader rushed to the front of the young man, threw down the scepter in his hand, and grabbed his neck. Lord Chief, please calm down. Red-haired rabbit narrowed his eyes, exerted force with his arms, and gradually took the leader's arm away from his neck. This is not the action that a subordinate should have towards the leader. The leader's eyes became more and more turbid, and the crowd became turbulent again. "You, come here, take him." The old man trembled all over. He felt that his authority had been challenged as never before. However, when the more than 20 priests ran over and wanted to catch red-haired Rabbit, the dozens of people who had just shouted the loudest in the team quickly picked up their weapons and ran to block them. Most of the other White Wolf tribe members did not expect things to turn out like this. They did not lean towards any side, but chose to continue to wait and see. After the fanatical war cry last night, the tribe members who calmed down were also thinking, do they really need to attack the distant foreign tribe? Do you want to overthrow me? Ah! The old leader shouted wildly. He looked at all the tribe members, as if seeking support and support. However, no one moved. "Chief, I'm afraid you have misunderstood." Red-haired Rabbit smiled and finally broke free from the leader's hands. "I just want to ask, why did the not very clear information obtained from the hunter Sally prompt us to send almost all the warriors to that distant unknown land?" His words soon echoed in the hearts of all the White Wolf tribe members. Yes, why did they have to send almost all the warriors to the tribe of the alien race, just based on the simple information from the missing Sally, who was not in the tribe? And there were so many cubs and female werewolves. These questions, like a small tree that took root and sprouted quickly, spread out and gradually grew in everyone's mind. Those alien races are our biggest threat. The biggest threat. Don't you know? Can't you understand? The leader was so angry that he trembled, and his voice became hoarse again. If we can eliminate them in one fell swoop, we won't have to worry about our tools being destroyed and our people being killed by them. His words had some effect. Most of the white werewolves who were originally on the sidelines remembered what the leader said last night. If there were no alien races, what would we worry about? My idea is the same as yours, Chief. There is no one here who doesn't hate those hateful foreigners. But, why do we have to put all our strength into this battle? Even if they only have one tribe as Sally, who is nowhere to be found, said, do we need to use all our strength to attack them? Red-haired Rabbit looked at the angry chief, but his voice was unusually calm. So, what do you want to do? The chief was almost out of breath, and he stared at the young tribesman who suddenly became serious in front of him. My suggestion is to separate some of your troops attacking the foreigners to defend this tribe. As soon as Red-haired Rabbit finished speaking, the more than 1,000 people who had shouted in the crowd before burst into deafening howls again. Give some people. The chief was stunned. What did you say? Chief, there are not many people left in our tribe who have fighting power. If those aliens choose to attack our empty tribe after the army is dispatched, then, wouldn't it be very dangerous? Chief, what the red-haired boy said is right. We have too few people guarding the tribe. Chief, think about it again. The tribe fell into chaos again. Guo Sen looked at all this and thought about a question. There seemed to be something wrong with this group of white wolves. Especially, it was this old leader. Chapter 130 To the Breath of Conspiracy. Guo Sen suddenly felt a little suspicious. There seemed to be something about this old tribal leader that gave him a strange sense of disharmony. Putting all the forces of the entire tribe into the expedition was normal in itself. But what did they say just now? The hunter named Sally seemed to have disappeared for many days. And from the mouth of this Sally, a piece of news was that it would not be long after crossing the mountain to reach the territory of the Black Wolf people, and there was a tribe of the Black Wolf people. Is this news reliable? I'm afraid that except for Guo Sen, the planetary will that can see all the situations clearly, no one should be sure of this kind of information, right? But this old leader seemed to firmly believe that this was the truth, and rashly wanted to throw nearly 7,000 troops into this war. This is a bit unreasonable. Also, this old guy actually brought so many women and children. What exactly does it mean? Guo Sen distracted himself to find the hunter Sally who had disappeared for many days. The solution is to simply lock him. With a thought, a dark golden halo appeared quickly. The halo named Hunter Sally suddenly appeared in a very far place. HMM. Guo Sen was a little puzzled. How could this Sally be so far away from the tribe? Guo Sen instantly moved his sight to the location of the halo. Is this a river? In front of Guo Sen, an extremely wide river kept rushing forward, with a sound like thunder, and the halo of Hunter Sally was in this river. Guo Sen suddenly smelled a hint of strange conspiracy. This important witness was not missing, but he had a thought. The body of a white wolf tribe member, which was swollen and almost eaten by underwater creatures except for the head, floated in the air. However, there was a hole on the neck of the corpse that was obviously pierced by a sharp weapon. This must not be the work of those underwater creatures. The smell of conspiracy suddenly became strong. Guo Sen threw the body of Hunter Sally into the river again, and his sight instantly returned to the tribe of the White Wolf tribe. In this short period of time just now, they seemed to have reached a consensus. Chief, I don't have any other extra ideas. I just want to give the tribe more guards. I believe there are many people who think the same way, right? Red-haired Rabbit squinted his eyes, still with that frivolous smile on his face. We will guard the tribe together with the red-haired boy. Chief, I'm willing to stay in the tribe too. Too few guards. There were more and more different voices in the crowd. The color on the old chief's face became more and more ugly. It can be seen that he seemed extremely anxious, but he had no way to deal with this group of tribesmen who were no longer obedient. His eyes kept focusing on the red-haired Rabbit, and then quickly left and looked at the gate of the tribe. I understand, you want to stay? That's no problem. The old chief finally let go. He seemed to think that this was not going to work, and he compromised. If the stalemate continued, it would be endless. If you want to stay, get out of this legion. Now. As soon as he finished roaring, quite a number of tribesmen left their huge team and joined the group that was not selected. Guo Sen roughly counted them, nearly 1,700. Nearly half of the women and children that the old chief had insisted on taking away withdrew. On the contrary, some of those who were originally left behind by the tribe and not selected also joined the legion led by the old chief. With people coming in and out, the number of people in the huge legion eventually became more than 6,000. Chief, we will take on the task of guarding our tribe. The red-haired Rabbit's expression became serious, and the frivolous look on his face disappeared. The chief opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, and then closed his mouth again. All warriors, listen to my orders. Our target is those black fur aliens who have caused us so much suffering. A priest suddenly stood up and shouted, fight. All the tribesmen shouted in unison. We swear to occupy their tribe. Kill all their people and let the red blood flow in their tribe. Fight. Light will drive out darkness. And we will defeat all the darkness that stands in our way. Fight. Light and glory. Either fight or die. Take my sword. The best sword in China. The holy sword of the White Emperor. Follow me on the sword. The roars of war continued to rise and fall. More than 6,000 White Wolf warriors, as well as other White Wolf tribe members in the tribe, raised their hands high until their voices became hoarse, but they did not forget to carry out the will to fight in their hearts. The stars gradually rose. The old leader and the other priests led more than 6,000 warriors and all the food, and set out from the tribe in a mighty manner, heading towards the direction of the volcano. They held meteorite iron spears and heavy bows, and each of them carried a large number of arrows, and the animal skin bags on their sides were filled with dry food such as dried meat. The White Wolf warriors rushing to the battlefield seemed to have made all preparations in every aspect. I believe that everyone among them would think so. In the tribe, everyone listen up. From now on, everyone will search for food as quickly as possible. Children who are capable, gather together to make arrows. Do you hear me? After the leader led everyone away, the red-haired Rabbit, who was standing in the crowd of more than 3,000 people, had an extremely serious expression, and his previous frivolous smile was completely gone. Standing next to him were the group of people who supported him the most, and had just shouted the loudest in the team. The leader's army took away all the food and almost all the arrows. There were only less than 1,000 longbows left in the tribe, as well as a small number of meteorite spears and broadswords. Yes, everyone knew that this was something that had to be prepared. Hunters, follow me to hunt. No matter big or small prey, we must bring them all back to the tribe before darkness falls. Guards, take your longbows and stand on the city wall immediately. The rest of you, except for the children, must go to the vicinity of the tribe and pick edible fruits. Do you hear me? Yes. After the red-haired rabbit simply arranged the work that everyone should do, he led hundreds of people out of the tribe without stopping. Others in the tribe also immediately began to take action. Those who should collect wild fruits should collect them, and those who should make weapons should make weapons. Everyone is no longer idle like before. If those aliens covered in black fur come to attack, everyone will die in the current situation of the tribe. In their bodies, the latent desire to survive was ignited again. Chapter 133Y. 5th update. Please subscribe. Guo Sen looked coldly at the 6,000-man army led by the leader who had already gone away, and the red-haired Libid people who began to get busy in the tribe. A guess in his mind had gradually taken shape. There seemed to be a rather large conspiracy in the whole thing, and the person at the center of this conspiracy was the old leader who had been instigating the attack on the Black Wolf tribe, and was always anxious. Why did he insist on leading all the tribesmen, or most of the tribesmen, to the Black Wolf tribe far behind the mountain? Even if he was stopped by the red-haired Libid and more than 1,000 people were withdrawn to guard the tribe, he still insisted on attacking? Moreover, it had to be today. Why was he in such a hurry? In addition, the body of the hunter Sally, who was said to have been missing for a few days, was obviously killed by someone. It was obvious that there was something going on. I'm afraid that the red-haired Libid also became the protagonist in the turmoil just now, because he understood something, leading those companions who were also smarter to leave the old leader's team. But, speaking of that, why did the old leader lead this group of people to the Black Wolf tribe? Guo Sen's current guess is that he may have some strange relationship with the Black Wolf tribe. In other words, does he have a relationship with the Black Wolf tribe that is not an enemy? What is it? For what purpose? Guo Sen thought carefully. At this time, he suddenly thought of something else. The 2,000 sneak attack troops of the Black Wolf tribe, led by the Black General, are lurking in the abandoned tribe next to the altar. They once said that they would attack the White Wolf tribe. Could it be that the old leader wants to take most of the White Wolf tribe away, leaving only the old, weak and disabled in the tribe, to be attacked and slaughtered by the Black Wolf tribe? However, this is a bit contradictory. If all those women and children are killed, what future will the White Wolf tribe have? What's more, after Red-Haired Rabbit asked more than 1,000 people to stay, the old leader let them go without too much hesitation. Or, did the old leader lead those more than 6,000 people to die? Why? There is no reason, right? What's the benefit of dying together? Guo Sen found that no matter which hypothesis was used, none of them was true. There was still a lack of more decisive evidence, and the decisive evidence would probably be revealed when the leader and his men arrived at the Black Wolf tribe, and when the night fell, the Black Generals attacked the White Wolf tribe. Guo Sen wanted to do something, but he felt that he had nothing to do. War is the fairest. No matter which side, even if they made a strategic mistake, they would give the enemy a great opportunity to counterattack, and thus get the painful price of failure. This price would be a disaster for either the White Wolf tribe or the Black Wolf tribe. Guo Sen felt that the most he could do was to observe the war full of conspiracy between the two races. He locked onto the huge army of more than 6,000 people led by the old leader, and the huge dark golden halo gradually moved towards the direction of the volcano. At their current speed, they might just reach the vicinity of the 6 tribes before dark. And when it was dark, it was the time when the Black General led more than 2,000 sneak attack troops to attack the White Wolf tribe. This time seems a bit too coincidental, right? However, this is not a conclusion yet, and it needs to be observed again. Time passed. In the White Wolf tribe, tribesmen kept coming in and out. Most of them returned with animal skin bags full of fruits and tuberous plants, and a small number of them were hunters led by Red-Haired Rabbit who returned from hunting. This time, the hunters did not spend a lot of energy hunting the huge paw giant beast as before, but hunted all animals that appeared in the grassland and forest, no matter how big or small, and then dragged them to the tribe. This is a helpless solution. The cubs of the White Wolf tribe, led by some larger tribesmen, hurried to make arrows made of branches and meteorite iron arrowheads. These arrows were also distributed to the guards who were holding their posts on the city wall at the first time. Guo Sen noticed that these people did not put 3 arrows on the bowstring collectively as before. perhaps for the purpose of saving, they only put one on. After all, the number of arrows was still too small. As weapons and food piled up more and more, the expression on red-haired rabbit's face gradually relaxed. Guo Sen wanted to know how much this guy had guessed to convince so many tribesmen to leave the expeditionary Black Wolf tribe with him and choose to stay in the tribe to guard. If it weren't for this guy's judgment, I'm afraid that this tribe of 3,000 people who should have been left would have become a sea of blood under the attack of the surprise attack force led by General Henry. However, it is too early to draw these conclusions now. After all, the night has not yet come, and the battle has not yet begun. The white wolves may not be able to hold it, and the black wolves may not be able to attack it. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The stars gradually moved to the west, and the sky gradually dimmed. The army of the white wolves, led by the old leader and more than 20 priests, passed through the jungle and came to the wide grassland. The towering volcano, like a huge shadow, blocked the light of the stars, shrouding the expeditionary Black Wolf tribe in the ominous shadow. They were not walking slowly, but because of this, some of the weaker ones and those children who had not been trained were gradually falling behind. The priests kept urging them at the end of the team. If Guo Sen didn't know that these people were going to war, he would have thought that they were migrating to a new area to establish a tribe. In his opinion, these people seemed to lack training. In other words, they did not have the crisis awareness similar to that of the lizardmen. Most of them had lost the most important thing in their hearts: will to fight. This word does not mean that it can be erupted by roaring and anger alone. It is the kind of fighting spirit that is selfless and reckless only when facing a strong enemy. The White Wolf clan may have never been divided in the past 300 years, and there are no enemies. They only need to compete with wild beasts for food. How much fighting power can they burst out when facing the nightmare of the Black Wolf clan that suddenly appeared? Moreover, from the beginning to now, Guo Sen has not seen these people have any systematic training related to combat. Just relying on weapons and tactics to deal with wild beasts, they want to attack the Black Wolf clan. Besides, my people, we only need to climb over that mountain to destroy the alien tribe. The old chief suddenly urged the people who had stopped for a while. Chief, should we continue to move forward? But if so, when we get there, I'm afraid darkness will also descend. Someone in the crowd raised an objection. However, we must destroy those aliens who take darkness as glory in this darkness. March. 1 week of explosive updates. 10,000 words a day. It finally ended today. I wanted to attract subscriptions to improve the performance of this book, but now it seems that it doesn't seem to have much effect. Reality still defeats dreams, but I don't want to admit defeat like this. Starting tomorrow, the normal double update will be restored. As the author, I have decided to calm down and slowly write this story well. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 134, Impatient. The old chief seemed determined to destroy those aliens who take darkness as their glory in the darkness. Is he serious? I'm afraid everyone present has such a question in their hearts, right? After he said this, the heroic spirit and the sparks of desire to fight in the eyes of all the White Wolf people also dimmed a little bit, and more confusion and puzzlement were revealed on their faces. Chief, but we have come such a long way. Maybe after climbing the mountain, we won't have too much energy to attack those alien tribes. This time, even a priest couldn't help but say this question. They can only move in the dark. If we attack in this darkness, the people of their tribe will go out hunting, and they will be unprepared, and thus be destroyed by us. The old chief held the wooden stick in front of him, and waved it continuously. The White Wolf people looked at each other. This seemed to make some sense, but after thinking about it carefully, it didn't make any sense. Chief, shouldn't we stay here and wait until the darkness is over before climbing over the mountain and attacking those foreign tribes who may not be able to move in the light? The priest immediately raised a new question, but the old chief seemed to be waiting for this question and snorted immediately. You actually thought of staying on this grassland without any walls or protection? In the dark, let alone those foreign tribes, even those guys who suddenly appeared and were originally our food will cause us great losses. The tribesmen were confused again. Everyone was confused. Should we move forward or stay where we are? Or return? After we cross the mountain and conquer the tribes of foreign tribes, they will no longer be a threat to us. At that time, we can live like before." Another priest suddenly shouted at this time. His voice also interrupted everyone's thoughts of going back. "Have you all forgotten the spirit of our tribe?" Another priest also roared. "No." When the tribesmen heard this, they suddenly became excited. This was like a conditioned reflex, which immediately restored their confidence. "We are going to show off. We are going to show off. We." The deafening howl resounded across the vast grassland. However, when the sound of the burning fighting spirit gradually subsided, it was easily torn into pieces by the sudden strong wind and disappeared into the air. However, the army of the White Wolf tribe finally regrouped, and even the people who had fallen behind before rushed over, and their morale was much better than before. After they simply ate some food, they marched towards the volcano again. Guo Sen looked at the army marching like a white cloud in the grassland and was extremely speechless about the clumsy drama performed by the leader and the priests. If there hadn't been this drama just now, the more than 6,000 people who had finally gathered together would probably have separated again like in the tribe, right? It can be seen that these 20 or so priests are all in the same group as the leader. At least, they have the same goal. They all gathered together to lead this group of warriors to attack the Black Wolf tribe. If there is any conspiracy here, these priests, like the leader, are also insiders. But why they insist on attacking the Black Wolf tribe, Guo Sen still hasn't figured it out. Watching their backs gradually turn orange in the dusk, Guo Sen turned his sight to another place with these questions. It was the Black Wolf tribe sneak attack force led by General Harry and the tribe next to the altar. Night is about to fall, and they will also take action. However, after he locked on the more than 2,000 people, he suddenly found that they had left the tribe and entered the forest. The speed is really not slow. Before it got dark, these impatient guys were already led by General Harry, trying not to make a loud noise, and gradually approached the White Wolf tribe. When darkness falls completely, it's time for us to attack. General Harry stood in front of the more than 2,000 black wolves, waving his huge fist. "Yes. Follow me. If anyone runs away, I will be the first to eat him." General Harry was not just saying this, he really dared to do it. The Black Wolf tribe, relatively speaking, relied more on their own strength in hunting, rather than those heavy stone guns. However, this also caused them to be unable to capture more prey, and at the same time, they were completely unable to meet the growing food needs of the tribe. They would also feel extremely manic and excited because they had no food in their stomachs. The last time the group led by General Harry ate, apart from some food at the altar, they only had the meat of their former companions. But that was not enough. They were hungry and their emotions gradually became extremely manic. They needed more food. They needed to eat the food in the White Wolf tribe. The White Wolf tribe. It didn't take long before more than 2,000 Black Wolf tribe members arrived at a position about 500 to 600 meters outside the White Wolf tribe. But before they stopped for a while, they heard a rustling sound coming. It's them. General Black saw several white shadows suddenly passing by not far away. Before he finished speaking, he rushed away in one step. While the black werewolves were still in a daze, they heard a dull sound in the forest and the scream of the half-screamed one. General Black's figure appeared in front of everyone, and there was a ball of white in his hand. "Let's divide this first." He threw the body of the fainted white werewolf in his hand to his subordinates, who had been waiting for a long time. The white werewolf was instantly awakened by the severe pain of the bites of the many black wolves biting his body, and saw with his own eyes that his body and limbs were broken into pieces in the crazy tearing. No. He couldn't even make a complete scream before his head and body were separated. The black werewolves would not give up any moment of tasting the delicious food, just like a large group of black leeches, drowning the white werewolf. They didn't even want to let go of any drop of blood, and even a little bit of bone marrow would be eaten clean. The bloody and cruel Black Wolf tribe was eager for more. The black general looked at the ground, where the strange black weapon that he had just taken from the white werewolf was thrown. He grasped the handle of the sharp single-edged weapon and swung it a few times. A cruel smile bloomed on the corners of his mouth. "We don't need to wait any longer. Now, charge towards those guys' tribe." Chapter 135 Chaos Night. In the White Wolf tribe. The gate of the tribe was closed. What did you say? Red-haired rabbit heard the report of the abnormal situation found by the panting sentinel. He did not expect that things would really develop as he guessed. They are coming. I'm afraid that Cass has already. The sentinel recalled the muffled sound he heard after seeing the huge black shadow grab the sentinel Cass, and knew that his companions might have died at the hands of the aliens. Everyone obey. Take your weapons and go to the city wall. Red-haired rabbit knew that the worrying thing had finally come, and he let out a deafening roar. Those aliens really chose to attack this tribe at night, when the leader took away most of the people. The enemy is here. Don't stand there. Go to the city wall and get ready. He continued to roar and ran to the bottom of the city wall like crazy and went up in twice and threes. Standing on this 3 or 4 meter high solid city wall, red-haired rabbit suddenly found something wrong. Lebbit. No. We can't see where the enemy is. These damn aliens. Their long black hair is too advantageous in this darkness. Someone soon discovered that the situation was completely unfavorable to them. This cunning enemy seemed to be smarter than they thought. I know. Keep your eyes open and watch carefully. From now on, be quiet and listen carefully to which direction they are attacking from. Lebbit was also very anxious. He thought of this, but he didn't expect that the light in the forest would be so dim tonight. He looked up at the night sky. The dark clouds had covered everything, and only a faint grey light was pouring down from top to bottom. Lebbit had only seen those aliens a few times before. Under the order of the leader, no tribesman could attack these aliens, just because they were afraid that they would launch a more severe revenge. The continued indulgence did not make these aliens with black fur and similar appearances to them restrain themselves from destroying tools at the beginning to killing some tribesmen who came back late one after another. Red-haired rabbit and some tribesmen who shared the same idea with him were dissatisfied with the aliens. Originally, when the leader said last night that he was going to attack the aliens, he was extremely excited, thinking that he could finally take revenge and completely drive out those barbaric guys. But think carefully, why did they set off so suddenly? Red-haired rabbit and many people felt that this was too abnormal. At the same time, some concerns about the aliens gradually sprouted in their hearts. Will they choose to sneak attack when the tribe is empty? The reason why they chose to stay in the tribe was also based on this concern. And now this concern has indeed become a reality. However, whether it is red-haired rabbit or other people in the tribe, they have more doubts about the old leader and the priests. Why did these aliens come to attack the tribe after they left? This is too much of a coincidence. Nearly 1,000 warriors holding longbows gathered on the city wall. They all carried a large number of arrows and looked nervously into the darkness. There, I don't know when the cruel faces of the aliens will suddenly appear. Lebbit believed that dealing with wild beasts was his forte, but now he could not help but be extremely nervous when he had to deal with these aliens who walked upright and were extremely flexible like them. The dark clouds gradually became thicker, and the fine drizzle suddenly chose to fall at this time. The sound of hitting countless leaves and grass blades gradually became noisy as the rain increased. In the end, the sound almost overwhelmed everything, and even the conversation between the two people standing 1 meter away became unclear. Red-haired Lebbit suddenly felt that things were developing in the most unfavorable direction for them. At this moment, he suddenly heard a sharp wind and felt a sharp pain from the palm of his left hand. At the same time, a few dozen kilometers away, the huge army led by the old leader had crossed the volcano and came to an area that was basically rubble. There was no one here, except for some sparse leaders looking up at the sky. The dark clouds rolled, and the wind gradually rose. He lowered his head and his face was expressionless. In this dim night, they couldn't even see each other clearly. The originally developed sense of smell was completely useless in this strong wind. After this long journey, this huge army had basically consumed all their physical strength and energy, and everyone was almost exhausted. My people. The tribes of those hateful aliens that Hunter Sally mentioned are quite close to here. Now is the time for us to boost morale, rush to their tribes, and completely destroy them. Light and glory. The priests also collectively shouted a war cry. However, in response to them, there were only a few responses from the crowd, and even the voices were so weak that they could hardly be heard. It was noisy. Except for the leaders and priests, the questions in everyone's hearts were getting bigger and bigger. Why do we have to attack those aliens who are more adapted to the darkness in this darkness? Why do we come here? Why? However, they have no way out. Whether returning to the tribe from here, or staying here, and waiting for dawn, it is extremely dangerous. Have you forgotten the tribesmen who are waiting for our victorious return in the tribe? Have you forgotten the fighting spirit we got from the god of war Edmund? The hoarse roar of the leader did not echo far as expected in the valley, where the wind suddenly blew, but was easily torn apart by the wind, so that even his priests a few meters away could not hear it clearly. Light and glory. Take my sword. The best sword in China. The holy sword of the White Emperor. Follow me with your sword. The priests hurriedly shouted the slogan. At this time, the wind suddenly stopped. The deadly white wolf tribe suddenly heard the frantic howling around them. The big raindrops hit the beard beside the leader's nose, wetting it, and then another drop splashed into his turbid eyes. The sound of rain gradually intensified. However, this could not cover up the howling of the white wolves who suddenly panicked and revealed infinite killing intent nearby. Enemy, enemy. It's those foreign races. Everyone picked up their weapons in an instant. Don't panic. Stand in line. The priests shouted, but they couldn't even see who was next to them. Not to mention keeping a formation. Among the white wolves, some childish voices suddenly cried loudly, irritated, fearful, and panicked. The army of the white wolf tribe, which seemed powerful at first, was easily thrown into chaos by the howling. The rain was getting heavier. My people. No one could hear the leader's words. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136, Mind Reading. Damn it. Red-haired Rabbit felt the severe pain in his left hand, but he tried not to scream and lay on the wall. His trembling right hand touched the left hand that seemed to be burned by fire, but suddenly found that there was nothing there. What? A lot of blood continued to flow out from the wound. A feeling of dizziness quickly occupied his originally clear mind. Rabbit. Who are? The tribesmen around him didn't know what happened. Just as they bent down to check what happened to him, they suddenly screamed and fell off the towering wall. A beam of thunder passed by. At this moment, Rabbit looked at his companion who was completely motionless and lying at the bottom of the wall. The rain gradually faded the deep red blood that kept flowing from his head, and next to his body was a stone spear with extremely rough workmanship. They are coming. In this direction. Get down. Rabbit roared with all his strength. Exclamation mark. However, he still shouted a little late. Dozens of white wolf tribesmen fell down from the city wall one after another before they understood what was happening. Compared to these aliens who were used to the night, they were like standing targets on the city wall. If they were simply thrown with stone spears whose lethality was far inferior to that of meteorite spears, as long as it was not too outrageous, there would always be casualties among the densely packed white wolves standing on the city wall. Red-haired Rabbit endured the intense pain and wrapped the animal skin on his broken wrist. Pass it to the people next to you. Get down. He knew that, if he didn't do this, more tribesmen would probably be. However, those faint screams continued to sound. The sound of thunder and rain covered everything. Red-haired Rabbit knew that everything seemed to be heading towards the result he least wanted to see. However, perhaps the words he passed down worked, and in this thunderstorm, the screams of the tribesmen did not continue to appear, and the violent raindrops just now gradually weakened. They are coming. At this moment, the tribesman next to Libet shouted this sentence, stood up instantly, and threw out the meteorite spear in his hand. Almost at the same time, a scream came from outside the city wall. Haha. Let you know me. However, before this tribesman could lie down, a big hole was opened on his body, and he fell under the city wall screaming. Libet understood that among this group of foreigners, there might be one or more extremely difficult to deal with. The raindrops gradually became sparse. The originally noisy night gradually became quiet. Libet's left wrist was still in severe pain. He pulled out his trembling right hand that had been pressing there, and grabbed the spear beside him. Everyone, put the arrows on the bowstring. Without the interference of the rain, his roar could be transmitted to a long distance. However, the moment he finished speaking, he felt that the city wall under him suffered a heavy blow. The wood chips collapsed. A stone spear with the tip of the spear already sunk into the wooden wall was very close to the wooden wall below him. Rabbit hurriedly crawled to the side, not knowing whether it was rain or sweat on his head. He breathed in the air with big mouthfuls, and his consciousness gradually became a little fuzzy. It seemed that he had become the main target of those aliens from the beginning. Rabbit sighed. A flash of lightning suddenly flashed in the night sky. At this moment, he also saw those aliens wearing black fur who had approached very close to the city wall. All troops fire. After the red-haired Rabbit shouted this sentence, he suddenly felt a black screen in front of his eyes and fainted before he had time to crawl away. Chief, why is it different from what we agreed? How could they? A priest hurriedly ran to the leader's side and shouted, I want to know too. The old leader's voice was intermittent in the pouring rain. Lie down first. We agreed before that they will never hurt us this time. The howling of the Black Wolf tribe gradually approached the White Wolf tribe hiding in the rocks. The rain soaked their black fur, but their blood-red eyes were not extinguished. They had been waiting here for nearly a day with stone spears in their hands. If it weren't for the heavy rain, they would have wanted to lure these white wolves to one of the tribes, and then slowly kill them all, tear their flesh and suck their marrow. But they couldn't wait any longer. They really couldn't wait any longer. The old and confused white wolf leader actually sent so many tribesmen up with his companions, who wore strange things on their heads in order to survive. There was no reason for them to refuse. As for their promise not to harass their tribe again after this time, and not to hurt them, screw them. The Black Wolf clan has no such words as promises and credit. There are only ruthlessness and killing. There is only a desire for food and blood. As for what the leader said, there are too many people in the tribe, and the food can't keep up with the supply. Who understands? What about I will take most people in the group, and kill everyone except us. I will partially satisfy you. Killing is definitely going to happen, but kill them all. Don't leave any alive. A terrifying roar broke out from the Black Wolf clan army. In this pouring rain, the Black Wolf clan further narrowed the encirclement, and in an instant, collectively threw the stone spears in their hands at the group of enemies who had lost their eyesight in this rainy night. The deafening shouts, the miserable howls, the desperate roars. These sounds, accompanied by thunder and lightning and the torrential rain that seemed to never stop, washed the land. Guo Sen gained new abilities. Or rather, he awakened new abilities. A strange and powerful ability to listen to the thoughts of these intelligent creatures. When he locks on one or several characters, the things that the other party thinks can enter his mind completely. At the beginning, Guo Sen still felt that these messy thoughts were a bit chaotic, but after adapting in a short period of time, he found new fun in it. When he listened to the words of the red-haired rabbit before, he still felt a little boring. After all, this guy seemed frivolous, but he was just a young man who thought about the tribe, no matter what he did. After coming to the old chief, he found the fun of this ability. Just after reading the thoughts of the old chief and several priests around him, as well as the thoughts of the leaders of the Black Wolves who had surrounded them, Guo Sen had already glimpsed the whole picture of the whole thing. However, when he carefully recalled it, he couldn't help but sigh. It seems that not everything is better. Chapter 137 Light and Glory. The leader of the White Wolf tribe, Track, was deeply troubled by one thing. Even though a considerable number of hunters were sent out to hunt and gather every day, the prey they could catch and the fruits they could harvest could only satisfy the consumption of this huge tribe for 1 or 2 days. As time passed, their hunting range continued to expand, but the prey they could hunt became less and less. The hunters needed to walk a long time to reach the grassland and spend more time hunting and then transporting it back to the tribe. However, the population growth rate in the tribe has caused more and more problems in food supply. They cannot get more food. In the long run, a considerable number of people in the tribe may starve to death. Just as the leader Track was thinking about how to solve this problem, the Black Wolf tribe appeared. These black aliens, who should have been destroyed by the god of war Edmund in the ancient story, suddenly appeared in a silent night. They smash the tools and blast furnaces in the White Wolf smelter, and from time to time they would use those extremely backward stone guns to throw into the tribe. In the end, they even attacked the lone hunters and killed them. Chief Track knew that these people would never be satisfied with such small-scale harassment. However, not long ago, when he and the priests were heading to the altar, they were surrounded by nearly 100 Black Wolf tribe members. Accustomed to peace and afraid of death, he immediately begged for mercy from the tallest and most ferocious Black Wolf tribe member. What he didn't expect was that the Black Wolf tribe, a group of foreign races representing barbarism and terror, could actually communicate with them. At this moment, Chief Track immediately came up with a way to solve the population growth problem and keep himself alive at the same time. He promised the huge Black Wolf tribe member that he could take as many tribe members as possible to the vicinity of the Black Wolf tribe and give them to these cruel Black Wolf tribe members as food, as long as they could let the more than 20 of them live and stop harassing the tribe. The Black Wolf people were not completely ignorant. They readily agreed to the proposal of the leader Track and urged him to bring the tribe to their territory as soon as possible, and promised that after this incident, they would never harass the White Wolf tribe again, and the two tribes would turn from hostility to harmony. However, the scene of them kneeling down to beg for mercy was seen by Hunter Sally. But when the unlucky Sally returned to the tribe and questioned the leader who had escaped death, he was attacked by the priests and thrown into the river overnight to destroy the body. The anxious Black Wolf people reminded him again on the next time the leader went to the altar what would happen if he did not act according to the plan as soon as possible. The leader Track, who was timid and afraid of death and eager to solve the tribal problems, held a swearing-in meeting that night. He knew that the moment to change this tribe would come when he led more than half of the tribe to the territory of the Black Wolf people. However, the Black Wolf people were not the kind of backward primitive people who were hopelessly stupid. They were greedy and extremely cruel. The extreme desire for food made them covet something more than what the leader promised, to destroy the entire White Wolf tribe. Of course, the old guy and the priests of the White Wolf tribe will also die with those tribesmen the moment they arrive at their own tribe. They have not forgotten the remaining White Wolf tribe members in the tribe. The surprise attack team of 2,000 people has already attacked the tribe that the old leader wanted to keep while leading the tribesmen to their burial place. Guo Sen's newly developed ability allowed him to quickly understand the ins and outs of the whole matter. At the same time, it also solved the mystery why there are so many unreasonable things in the civilization of the White Wolf tribe. However, what he never expected was that the old leader of the White Wolf tribe would choose this most unrealistic and most deformed path because of the excessive population and his own life. Of course, the consequences of behavior brought about by the increase in population density are inevitable. But this is not a way and method without a solution. Obviously, he could make the tribe split into more than a dozen small and medium-sized tribes like the lizardmen on another continent, control a wider area, and obtain more things and living space. But he didn't do that. Guo Sen guessed that this old guy might be afraid that these separated tribes would act independently and eventually become their enemies. In any case, after he chose this path, he also planted the seeds for the extinction of the tribe. The Black Wolf tribe has been their natural enemy since hundreds of years ago. It was the time when there were only 40 people left in their tribe, and it is also the time when they have become a population of tens of thousands. The Black Wolf tribe is barbaric, bloodthirsty, violent, and ignorant. But they are still cunning and untrustworthy. It is absolutely, and will happen, that they will betray the agreement with the naive and stupid old leader of the White Wolf tribe who has illusions about them. Guo Sen sighed in his heart. The Black Wolf tribe took the initiative and occupied all the advantages. They surrounded the 7,000-man army in the valley and used a surprise attack force of 2,000 people to attack the tribe with only more than 3,000 women and children and a small number of warriors. In the dark night, in this storm, all the advantages of the White Wolf clan, advanced and powerful weapons, morale that can defy everything, have now become dispensable. However, neither the Black Wolf clan nor Guo Sen expected this. The White Wolf clan has an extremely strong will to fight. Light and glory. Take my sword. The number one sword of China. The White Emperor's holy sword. Follow me with your sword. We are going to show off. Even in this distant tribe and valley, the White Wolf clan almost shouted at the same time with a deafening roar, words that were enough to boil their blood. "Everyone get ready. Fight or die." The White Wolf clan in desperate situation burst out with a strong desire to survive. On this rainy night, the White Wolf clan in the valley raised the meteorite spears in their hands. "We are going to show off." The outermost White Wolves shouted this sentence and rushed to the front of the darkness with their hands holding long spears with all their strength. Exclamation mark. The extremely sharp spear tips quickly cut a very long wound on the bodies of the closest Black Wolf tribe members and even pierced their bodies into a big hole. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" The White Wolves shouted loudly. They could not see the enemy's figure in this dark night, but they could feel the breath of the enemy who was originally arrogant and confident, but now became trembling and surprised. Blood flowers continued to splash in the darkness. And the glory of the White Wolf tribe also bloomed at this moment. Chapter 138 Condensed Raindrops. The thunder kept roaring, and the light of lightning occasionally illuminated the valley that was stained with blood and filled with corpses. The rainstorm washed everything away. The golden eyes of the muddy White Wolf tribe members were shining with fighting spirit, which completely burned their fierce hearts. As long as they can stand up, as long as they can still hold the spears and bows in their hands, they will never surrender to these violent and cunning aliens. Fight, fight, fight non-stop. Although the White Wolf tribe members have been accustomed to a peaceful life, the blood flowing in their bodies is as hot as it was 300 years ago. The sharp weapons in their hands also made the Black Wolf people who originally wanted to rush up dare not approach. In this dark night with heavy rain, the Black Wolf people who originally had all the advantages of time, place, and people suddenly didn't know how to fight. They were forced to retreat continuously by these White Wolves, who were even crazier and more warlike than them, even though they had more than twice the number of people. The rain gradually subsided, and the strong wind became the protagonist again. The dark clouds that had gathered in the sky gradually dispersed, and the bright light shone on the land again. The soaked White Wolf people finally saw the retreating enemy clearly in the dark night. "Raise your bow." The howl of a White Wolf suddenly rose in the valley. "Fire!" Without the obstruction of the rainstorm and the obstruction of the night, the White Wolf tribe finally remembered how to deal with the group of aliens surrounding them. What they were doing was almost the same as hunting those manic beasts at ordinary times. The Black Wolf tribe only knew that the rainstorm had stopped just now, but they never thought that this rainstorm composed of arrows would surround them again. Retreat, retreat. The Black Wolf tribe knew that the enemy they encountered was not as weak as they imagined. However, knowing this, it was too late for them to regret. Countless screams continued to come out from the Black Wolf army. However, the White Wolf people did not want the screams of the aliens to stop. The second round, the third round, the arrows they continuously fired left the Black Wolves who were already in chaos with nowhere to hide. The number of Black Wolves was constantly decreasing amid their constant screams. The encirclement of the White Wolves that had originally been formed also gradually dissipated and blurred, and finally broke into several pieces. The White Wolves did not rashly chase the Black Wolves who had already fled far away. With bows and arrows that could attack from a distance, they took advantage of the precious time when the Black Wolves retreated to get a chance to breathe. The muscles on their arms had long been stiff and weak, and their bodies, which were ravaged by the cold rain and strong wind, were constantly shaking. The eyes of the White Wolves were still staring at the aliens who were constantly retreating and fleeing, and they dared not relax for a moment. They gasped heavily, and from time to time they used their peripheral vision to glance at their fellow tribesmen who had died on the ground. In the torrential rain just now, nearly half of their legion died. The Black Wolves, who also got a chance to breathe, gradually gathered again under the leadership of various leaders. "Kill them. Charge." The long howl of the Black Wolf tribe resounded in the valley. "Raise your bow." At the same time, the voice that had given the order before roared again among the White Wolf tribe. Facing the howling and crazy Black Wolf tribesmen who were rushing towards them, the bowstrings of the White Wolf tribesmen were already taut, and the arrows with hatred were ready to be fired at any time. Aim at the enemy. Shoot, shoot. Thousands of arrows streaked through the night sky like meteors. The White Wolf tribe. The Black Wolf tribesmen charged back and forth, more than 10 times. However, facing the 3 or 4 meter high wooden fence, they had no way to deal with it. Under the night sky that had gradually returned to a clear sky, their advantage gradually disappeared. The weapons of the White Wolf tribesmen continuously repelled and killed these crazy aliens. The balance of victory was also constantly tilting towards the White Wolf tribe. Even the leader of the Black Wolf tribe, General Hay, could only continuously project all weapons that could be projected, stone guns, stones, and even the fallen bodies of the White Wolf tribesmen, in order to kill more White Wolf tribesmen. However, he gradually realized that, while he was losing strength, the number of White Wolves lying on the wall was not much. He gradually became anxious and frantic. All troops, charge. His roar was gradually hoarse. The Black Wolves, who were afraid of the Black General, were exhausted and many of them were seriously injured, but they still charged the White Wolf tribe again and again. Red-haired Rabbit gradually woke up from his coma. His long white hair was soaked in rain and stuck to his body. The wound on his left hand was still in severe pain. However, the continuous screams and rough howls in his ears told him that the battle had not stopped. Rabbit raised his head slightly and suddenly saw a huge black shadow not far below the wall, constantly dodging arrows. There was no doubt that it was the leader of the Black Wolf tribe who came to attack the tribe. He raised his stiff and cold right hand and grabbed the shaft of the meteorite spear that had accompanied him in countless battles. His trembling fingers gradually calmed down, and his body, which had been stiff for a long time, burst out with powerful strength. Red-haired Leebit let out a louder roar than ever before. The black sharp weapon, that exuded an extremely cold breath under the faint light, tore through the air and whistled straight towards the huge black shadow. Leebit swore that he had never heard such an ugly and terrifying scream. After struggling for a while, the huge black shadow fell to the ground with a bang. The hero of the Black Wolf tribe fell in an instant. At the same time, the Black Wolf people who were still howling and charging towards the tribe again just now suddenly seemed to be frozen and stiffened in place. "What are you doing? Shoot the whole army." Leebit panted heavily and howled loudly. Asterisk 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 early in the morning. The thick white fog filled the valley. The attack and defense that started last night have not completely stopped. From time to time, Black Wolves would charge at the White Wolves without hesitation, but they soon became victims of those sharp weapons. The huge number of Black Wolves who had surrounded the White Wolves had completely lost the momentum of last night, and there were only a few hundred people left. They were hungry and eager to eat the White Wolves who were right in front of them, but the attacks they organized again and again were constantly repelled. They began to retreat, and they also began to run away. No one could imagine that the White Wolves would actually burst out with unprecedented powerful fighting power in such a desperate situation. The White Wolves were also exhausted. They breathed in the humid air, and their nerves were tense all night, without any relaxation. Those who escaped from death knew that the dawn had not yet fully arrived, unless it had not arrived before these cunning Black Wolves completely retreated. Chapter 139 shouldn't be here. The White Wolf tribe members were almost exhausted. They saw the black fur aliens retreating and fleeing. Even though they were still alert to whether they would continue to attack, their bodies could no longer hold on. After fighting all night, they knelt down in the thick fog. The bodies of the dead tribe members were around them, and not far away were the bodies of the enemies. Like their ancestors 300 years ago, they once again accomplished the feat of defeating the enemy with fewer people and once again expelled those black nightmares. However, the price this time seemed to be no lighter than that of the era of the God of War Edmund. My people, the power of the God of War Edmund gave us strength. However, the old leader who had just climbed up from the rubble in the distance and saved his life, and the priests who were not hurt at all in the battle and did not make any contribution, were silent before they could finish their heroic words. The exhausted tribesmen found that the necks of their old leader and the priests were completely broken, as if they were strangled by something. Asterisk 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 the fleeing Black Wolf tribe ran through the thick fog and ran between the mountains and fields. They had invested nearly 20,000 troops last night, but now only a few hundred people were left. This was something they had never imagined. In the dark night and rainstorm, and in this valley, that they were very familiar with, the Black Wolf tribe, who had an absolute advantage in numbers, had never thought of defeat. In their opinion, the 7,000 tribesmen brought by the cowardly leader could only wait to die, wait to be bitten to death, and be eaten. However, this did not happen. They only lost less than half of their people, but destroyed their own army. How could this be possible? This is absolutely impossible. The Black Wolf tribe did not flee to their tribe, but ran to the mountain and reunited. They also had a powerful army led by General Black. That army must have occupied the White Wolf tribe, which was short of troops, right? If we join them. Every Black Wolf has the same idea. The Black Wolf people who escaped from the cruel battlefield gathered on the grassland at the foot of the mountain. There were only more than 400 of them left, and they were full of hope, and ran madly towards the tribe of the White Wolf. However, at this moment, a huge army of nearly 1,000 people suddenly blocked their way. This is. The Black Wolf tribe looked at these creatures that were completely different from them, and the White Wolf tribe with extremely surprised eyes, speaking a language they could not understand at all, waving the three-pronged weapon in their hands. The Black Wolf tribe felt a strong aggressiveness from the eyes and movements of these strange guys. Run, run. A Black Wolf sensed the danger and just wanted to turn around and escape, but suddenly screamed, and his body was nailed to the ground by the strange weapon. After fighting all night and traveling a long distance to get here, the Black Wolf people were already at the end of their strength. Even if they wanted to escape, their bodies could not react immediately. But the deadly weapons fell from the sky like raindrops. This group of Black Wolf tribesmen were completely slaughtered unilaterally. Guo Sen didn't want to care about their lives or deaths. What he cared more about was the primitive people in front of him who were using tridents and should not be in this howling land. They should have been on the islands of the frozen swamp, taming turtle dragons, and collecting insect honey to make wine. Why did they suddenly appear in this place? He raised his eyes and looked at the frozen swamp and suddenly found something that he didn't usually pay attention to. That piece of cold land seemed not far from this howling land. Especially the rather large island where they used to live was only separated from the howling land by a not very wide ocean. Could it be that this group of primitive people, relying on those tamed turtle dragons, ran to this continent and settled down? Although it was a guess, this was almost the only possible answer. The reason why I guessed that these primitive people were not from the fruit and vegetable tribe or the warlike tribe was because the wildfire land was too far away from here. No matter what, it was absolutely impossible for them to cross the vast ocean from there and run to this distant continent. However, Guo Sen still couldn't fully understand why these primitive people who were supposed to live on that island had changed so much. The long curly beards on their faces, which were originally dirty in their impression, had disappeared. It seemed that most of them had been shaved off with a sharp weapon, leaving only blue stubble. The bronze trident shining with dark gold had now become pure iron, and the shape was much more beautiful. The surface seemed to have been polished by something, becoming extremely smooth and shiny, and their upper bodies were wearing strange shaped armor made of countless metal rings. Guo Sen thought of the lizardmen. Those guys also wore very simple armor, but compared with this complex workmanship, almost covering the upper body and arms, it was nothing at all. Guo Sen suddenly remembered that this seemed to be very similar to a kind of armor called mail armor that appeared in ancient times on Earth. It's just that these are much rougher than those on Earth. However, in this ancient era, this also represents that the smelting technology and weapon manufacturing technology of this primitive tribe have reached a new stage. Just when Guo Sen kept sighing that these primitive people had evolved their civilization to a higher level, these people had slaughtered all the Black Wolf tribesmen. The progress of the primitive people made Guo Sen stunned. They didn't even have enemies, but they killed all these Black Wolves who were almost born for fighting in a very short time. What happened to this tribe in the frozen swamp that led to the current changes? Guo Sen didn't like the feeling of being kept in the dark, especially after being able to read the thoughts of these people. He moved his mind. However, something strange happened. He could only read that these primitive people wanted to cross the forest and go to a lake in a warmer area. Such a simple thought. Even if you use consciousness to explore deeper, you can't do it. Guo Sen suddenly realized that his ability might be extremely immature. In other words, it was completely different from what he imagined. The reason why he could read the thoughts of the Black Werewolf, the White Werewolf leader and the priests before was only because they kept thinking about these thoughts in their minds at that time. However, Guo Sen thought of his other abilities again. It seemed that they were constantly evolving with the passage of time and the influence of reasons that were not understood at present. Then this new ability will also gradually become stronger, right? This is almost absolute and certain. Chapter 140, Descendants of Darkness. When Guo Sen used his ability to lock onto the black wolves who were attacking the white wolf tribe, he suddenly discovered that the unlucky losers, who were only a dozen left, were rushing towards the team of primitive people who were just about to set off. Everyone, get ready. Don't let any of them escape. An unusually deep voice sounded, and all the primitive people raised their heavy weapons. Their eyes were wide open, and war roars were heard everywhere. Kill. The dozen or so black wolves didn't even have time to scream before they became pieces of meat soaked in blood. Oh, so miserable. Guo Sen looked at the tragic end of this group of barbaric races and couldn't help but think of the tragic situation that their fellow tribesmen encountered 300 years ago, which was surprisingly consistent. However, he had another question. Why were these primitive people who came to this continent across the ocean so accustomed to treating the Black Wolf tribe as enemies? Logically speaking, when encountering strange creatures, such as the Black Wolf tribe who looked like a wild beast just lying on the ground, the first reaction should be defense or observation. But what did this group of primitive people do? They started fighting without saying a word. Bad temper? Just reckless? These factors should be involved, but there should be deeper reasons. Guo Sen raised his eyes. He suddenly had another idea. Could it be that the Black Wolf people near the valley were not the last group to survive on this continent? The Black Wolf people of these 6 tribes had been basically wiped out by the brave White Wolf people, and the few that remained were also killed by the primitive people who happened to pass by. If this was all their people, then they must have been completely wiped out this time. The Black Wolf tribe would become the only intelligent creature to be extinct on the planet. Guo Sen's eyes quickly searched across the vast howling land. He suddenly realized that he really didn't check this continent too carefully last time. This continent spans the temperate and frigid zones. The closer to the south, the more extensive the distribution of coniferous forests. The areas where the White Wolf tribe and the Black Wolf tribe are located are relatively close to the center of the land. The landforms here are almost all rolling hills and mountains covered with grasslands and forests. There are occasional plains, which are occupied by lakes and wetlands. In the southeast of the entire land, there is a vast plateau area where snow is accumulated all year round, and there seems to be no vegetation. Guo Sen did not think that there would be black werewolves in such a place. But when his eyes swept over a mountain range of 3,000 or 4,000 meters, he unexpectedly found that thick gray smoke was coming out of one of the valleys. Gray smoke. The appearance of this thing means the existence of fire. He quickly lowered his sight, and soon he saw the fire point clearly. It was not a mountain fire caused by lightning, but it was indeed a pile of firewood piled together to ignite it. And next to this pile of fire, Guo Sen saw humanoid creatures that should never have this kind of flame technology. Black Wolf tribe. Guo Sen felt that his subjective consciousness sometimes always slapped himself in the face. In this snowy area, where animals are scarce and far away from the gathering place of the White Wolf tribe, there are really creatures. The most outrageous thing is that they can still use fire. The original impression is that the Black Wolf tribe is definitely ignorant and backward. In front of Guo Sen's eyes, this group of people with long black hair, who are very familiar to him, are doing a very strange thing around the fire. These nearly 200 Black Wolf tribe members are wearing clothes made of bark and hay. They are holding hands and circling around this huge fire. From time to time, they will raise their arms, kick their legs, and shake their tails behind them. That is quite rhythmic. There is no doubt that this group of creatures, whose IQ should not be enough, have learned something that even the White Wolf tribe has not learned. Dance. Guo Sen can see that this is definitely not some random jumping. They are in unison, chanting in their mouths, as if they are chanting something in a low voice. Oh, they can even sing. You guys, do you want to become the world's first group idol in this primitive society? Guo Sen was thinking about this boring joke in his mind, and found an irregular stone slab of nearly 1 meter long and wide very close to the fire. There seemed to be something carved on the rough stone slab. Guo Sen looked carefully. Although it was blurry as a whole, he could still see that this was a werewolf holding two long spears, tilting his head and roaring wildly. Oh, could this be their god? Shit, wait, what's going on? Guo Sen suddenly felt that something was wrong. Isn't this the god of war Edmund worshipped by the White Wolf clan? Exclamation mark. Isn't this the guy who controlled the corpse 300 years ago, killed more than 100 Black Wolf clan members, and led less than 40 White Wolf clan members to successfully turn the tables? Guo Sen thought there was something wrong with his visual system. Maybe he was dazzled? Some similarities, so he took it for granted. He looked again carefully. That's right. That's the guy. Which Black Wolf clan has ever held a pair of guns? They haven't even used the double sticks. No matter how you look at it, this is the god of the White Wolf tribe, Edmund the god of war. Guo Sen fell into deep thought. He suddenly remembered something. When General He led many tribesmen to the altar, he also looked at the statue of Edmund the god of war, which was more than 10 meters high, with a very strange look. Logically speaking, if the Black Wolf tribe saw the statues worshipped by the White Wolf tribe, they should have smeared and smashed them, and destroyed them as much as possible. But they didn't do that. They just ate the tributes. Guo Sen suddenly had an idea. It was ridiculous, but it could explain these strange things. Maybe, this god of war Edmund is also the god of these Black Wolf tribes? Guo Sen didn't understand what the concept of god was for these primitive humanoid creatures. Fear of nature? Fear of things that cannot be understood? Or is it that, like the White Wolf tribe, the worship of heroes gives them divinity? While he was guessing, the dancing black wolves suddenly stopped, released each other's hands, and knelt down collectively. Great God Ackerman, please bless our race to prosper. Great God Ackerman, please keep us away from disasters and things that can hurt us. Guo Sen watched and listened to the devout appearance of the Black Wolf tribe kneeling and worshipping the stone slab, and confirmed his thoughts. However, they seemed to call Edmund, the god of war in the mouths of the White Wolf tribe, Ackerman, and the pronunciation seemed to be somewhat similar. Could it be that there is really a connection? However, at this moment, nearly 300 werewolves suddenly walked out of the coniferous forest. The hair on their bodies was not pure black. Instead, it was a strange pattern composed of black and white at the same time. Chapter 141. Are you panda? Guo Sen raised his non-existent eyebrows. He was surprised by the appearance of the group of wolf people with black and white fur in front of him. In this remote valley nearly 10,000 kilometers away from the White Wolf tribe and the Black Wolf tribe, such a strange race actually appeared. Although their faces look exactly the same, the color of their fur shows that they are completely different from the two incompatible races. Black and white. Are you panda? Exclamation mark. Guo Sen wanted to complain like this, but these guys have werewolf faces. Just call them panda werewolves. Guo Sen suddenly noticed that the so-called black werewolves next to the fire actually had a few white embellishments on their bodies. This also proves that these guys and the wolf people who walked towards the fire are all of the same race. The world is really wonderful. Guo Sen sighed in his heart, but he was a little speechless. Isn't he the world itself? He turned his sights to these panda wolfmen with strange fur colors, and almost confirmed one thing. The ancestors of these people were probably the parties involved in the war between black and white wolfmen 300 years ago. Otherwise, no matter whether it is white wolfman or black wolfman, there will not be so many colors for many generations. This can be seen from the white wolfman and black wolfman tens of thousands of kilometers away. I'm afraid that after the war, some white wolf tribesmen accidentally discovered the black wolf tribesmen who were alone and did not fight. Both sides sent autumn spinach to each other and finally ran to this place nearly 10,000 kilometers away for love or something to live and survive and reproduce to this day. Guo Sen felt that this was the only answer that was more reliable. Guo Sen looked at these guys carefully and suddenly found that the color of their pupils was different from that of the black and white wolfman. It was neither gold nor red, but a color similar to that between green and purple. This kind of enchanting color made Guo Sen suddenly think of the beauty contact lenses on Earth. It really looks like it. It was a bit strange that this group of fierce looking werewolves had pupils of such a strange color. The panda werewolves gathered together, and 4 strong guys came out to lift the heavy stone slab together. There were a few more helpers in the crowd, and they lifted the stone slab together. Guo Sen saw that the group of people circled around the fire again, jumped for a while, and then walked in another direction. He raised his sight and found that at the end of the direction, where the panda werewolves were heading, was an extremely large cave. Another cave? Guo Sen couldn't remember how many races on his planet liked to live in such things. But no race's cave was as large as the one in front of him. Even the cave that the bird people dug out to worship their gods was just a small witch compared to this. After the panda werewolves came to the entrance of the cave, they did not stay for a second, but entered collectively and disappeared into the shadows in the cave. Guo Sen followed them closely, and after walking along the tunnel of the cave for quite a while, he suddenly found that he came to a very wide place. The countless stalactites and stalagmites several meters high, the sound of water dripping into the bottomless deep pool, and the colorful rock walls dotted with various crystals made Guo Sen couldn't help but admire. Even though he was the will of this planet and the planet itself, he had never thought that there was such a place on his body. Big movements were simple for him, but he had never done anything so exquisite. The uncanny work of nature. Guo Sen suddenly remembered this sentence and couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. This huge cave is the lair of the panda wolf people. He also noticed that, although this cave was sheltered from wind and rain, the panda wolf people seemed to be extremely obsessed with things like houses. However, the things they made houses with were just a pile of strange things sewn from tree bark and animal skins. The panda wolf people lit a small fire in this large cave. Guo Sen noticed that these people took out white things like balls from their bags, made of tree bark, and threw them next to the fire. It seemed to be the rhizome of some plant. Some werewolves also took out bloody pieces of meat from their bark clothes, cut them into small pieces with the purple red metal short blades in their hands, strung them with branches, and roasted them next to the charcoal fire. Oh, that purple red metal is undoubtedly copper. They can use fire, eat cooked food, and master some smelting techniques. This race seems to be on the road to civilization development, and has taken a very steady path. Guo Sen left his sight from the cave. The panda werewolves, with a total population of nearly 1,000, are afraid that they still have a long way to go in the development of this civilization. Both the number of people and civilization are at a very primitive stage. However, although they are not as good as the white wolf tribes whose civilization has already taken shape, they have made great progress compared to the black wolf tribes, which are not sure whether they have already died. Guo Sen went to check the white wolves again after the fierce battle. Those guys who had fought to the death in the valley had slowly climbed up the volcano. They were covered with wounds and lost nearly 2,000 people in the battle with the black wolves. The will to fight to the death and the advanced weapons almost wiped out the black wolves. This was a feat accomplished without any influence from Guo Senator. Unlike 300 years ago, Guo Sen did not control the corpses, nor did he simply come to the gods, and he did not even use his ability to move away the dark clouds of the rainstorm that was very deadly to the white wolves. But the white wolves still won this victory with almost all disadvantages. On the other side, the white wolves guarding the city, led by the red-haired rabbit, have begun to clean up the battlefield. The guy with some red hair on his head lost his left hand in the battle just now. Fortunately, he did not die from heavy bleeding, and even killed the opponent's commander, the black general, in the battle. If it weren't for this guy's command, I'm afraid that none of the women and children in the white wolf tribe would be left alive. Those who came back from the valley would have to start all over again. The women and children they brought with them basically died in the war. Guo Sen knew that the traumatized white wolf people would probably have to choose a new leader in the coming days to replace the old leader Track who died in order to reduce the population pressure of the tribe and save his own life. And this new leader is probably this red-haired kid. This guy, like the wise man Wally before, is something that exists out of other people. Hero. The only thing Guo Sen did in this war that had an impact was to break the neck of the old thing who survived and didn't care about the lives of his people, along with the priests, who were in cahoots with him. He didn't think he did anything wrong, he just eliminated these annoying guys from the sphere. It would never be these old people who create a new era. Chapter 142. What are you here for? Guo Sen sight did not leave the Howling Land. He continued to look for any traces of intelligent creatures. After all, there was one thing that he was a little worried about. That was the primitive people who had killed the last black werewolves. Will they replace the Black Wolf tribe and become the new enemy of the White Wolf tribe? After all, the civilization of this race now seems to be much more advanced than that of the White Wolf tribe. They have already entered the hinterland of the vast Howling Land, so there should be a fairly large gathering point. Could it be the lake they were going to? Guo Sen didn't spend much effort to find the huge lake like a mirror at the end of the route of these primitive people. The seemingly boundless, veiled lake was gentle and blue, with white mist floating above the lake. The lake's surface seemed to be separated by a layer of vague water vapor, and the misty humidity was tightly attached to the water plants in the shallows. Countless water birds were either walking along the lake shore or gliding above the lake. Together with this beautiful scenery, they outlined a beautiful picture. Guo Sen was fascinated by the scenery. He never thought that there would be such a beautiful scenery on his sphere. It seems that, after watching too many fights between intelligent races, it is sometimes interesting to come to such a place to appreciate it. After Guo Sen admired it for a while, he began to look for the reason why those primitive people had to come here. They were definitely not here to appreciate the beautiful scenery, and coming from the distant frozen swamp to this Howling Land was also considered to be in the northern area. The distance was tens of thousands of kilometers. If they really walked so far for the beautiful scenery, then these people were really the first group of hikers on the sphere. Soon, Guo Sen found a man-made trace. Or rather, it was a large area of man-made traces. It was a large group of wooden houses built with wooden piles and connected into a large area. Guo Sen was not unfamiliar with these huge buildings. He had seen these buildings in the tribe of primitive people in the frozen swamp. However, compared with more than 300 years ago, these houses seemed more solid and beautiful, and did not seem so simple at all. The wooden houses connected to each other did not seem to be fully built, and some were just prototypes. A large number of primitive people came and went between the woods and the gathering area, constantly moving a large number of wood piles to these construction sites. Guo Sen looked at the settlement and found that these buildings seemed to have been built not too long ago. Is this a newly built tribe of primitive people? Compared with the frozen swampland with ice and snow, lack of plants and animals, and not suitable for survival, this warm Howling Land is a more suitable place for survival. However, why did these primitive people who were originally content to make wine, collect honey, and eat fish migrate here from such a distant place? With doubts, Guo Sen instantly shifted his sights to the island of the frozen swamp, where he first saw these primitive people. It has entered winter here, and it is basically covered with thick white snow. Guo Sen didn't take too long to find the tribe of primitive people he saw 300 years ago. He originally thought that this should be a ruin, but he didn't expect that in this group of buildings connected together, there were still a large number of primitive people jumping around the fire. They were just like what they saw 300 years ago, drinking brewed wine mixed with honey, eating beast meat with big mouthfuls, and looking like they were enjoying themselves. Moreover, these people seemed to have established dozens of tribes of all sizes in the habitable areas of the entire island, and the population was unprecedentedly prosperous. This was strange. Guo Sen thought that the primitive people in the Howling Land were actually forced by the severe cold weather to find a warm place as a new tribe. Now it seems that this idea is not correct. If not, Guo Sen went to the Howling Land again with doubts. In the southwest of this continent, which is not far from the island, there is a rather narrow peninsula. It is really closer than imagined to the northernmost end of the frozen swamp. Guo Sen roughly estimated that it was less than 1,000 kilometers. The distance to the tribe of the White Wolves is not as far as imagined, but almost less than 1,000 kilometers. And at the edge of this peninsula, he saw some familiar guys. It was hundreds of turtle dragons that assembled into a huge fleet. On the beach in front of this group of guys who were either silly or stupid, Guo Sen saw thousands of primitive people. Oh wow. This number is good. At this time, these primitive people were constantly feeding the turtle dragons, causing them to scramble. After eating the black balls, that seemed to have not changed much in the past 300 years, the turtle dragons even stretched their necks and let the primitive people gently stroke their heads. Just like a puppy. Guo Sen knew that the relationship between the two seemed to have become similar to that between a master and a pet. The primitive people did not all go down to the shore. Some of them suddenly climbed on the backs of the turtle dragons and roared loudly. Guo Sen saw these turtle dragons gathered together again and then swam into the vast deep sea collectively. The primitive people on their backs were like captains. Alas, how sad. These turtle dragons are not only pets, but have they even become important navigation tools. Just for the black balls made of unknown things? However, Guo Sen finally understood that the primitive people really rode on the turtle dragon across the vast ocean and migrated to this howling land. So, what was the reason for such migration? They were also very happy on that island. But these primitive people on the shore, plus those who have already gone deep into the hinterland, and the group building by the lake, there are nearly 6,000 people running to this howling land. This huge number. Could it be that they are no longer satisfied with surviving on one continent and have developed to the point where they can invade other continents? Can the development of these 300 years allow the civilization of this human race to evolve to this point? This is just a guess with the highest probability. But Guo Sen also knows that his guess is sometimes really accurate. This group of primitive people did not stay on this beach for too long. They gradually gathered together again under the leadership of several leaders. Guo Sen suddenly noticed that there seemed to be no women and children among these people, but all of them were middle-aged men. He recalled carefully that it seemed that those on the grassland and by the lake were all men. This doesn't make sense. If they really want to take root in this land, they can't do it without bringing a large number of female primitive people, right? Could it be that? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143, Foodie Race. Guo Sen suddenly overturned his previous idea. This group of primitive people did not seem to want to migrate the tribe or expand their territory. If they really wanted to do so, they would definitely migrate all the women and children on the island. However, they did not do so. Guo Sen locked onto the primitive people who had just moved from the beach into the coniferous forest, watching them cut through the thorns and go deeper. These people went straight to the direction of the lake without any hesitation. What on earth were they running so far away for? Guo Sen's sight locked onto the buildings by the lake again. He suddenly discovered something strange. The buildings that had been built did not seem to be used by these people to live, but instead had an unimaginable number of jars. Those jars were exactly the same as those filled with wine and insect honey in their warehouses in the frozen swamp. Guo Sen moved his mind, and the bark on a heavy jar was moved away, and the liquid inside also floated in the air. This sticky feeling. It's not wine, but insect honey. Guo Sen instantly remembered that these primitive people had traveled long distances for the insect honey, going deep into the land to find the areas where the insects gathered. Could it be that these primitive people came to this continent thousands of kilometers away with so much manpower just for the insect honey? And the so-called tribe they were building was actually just a warehouse for collecting and storing insect honey? Guo Sen locked onto some primitive people who were heading deep into the forest and found that they stopped near a swamp. The area of this swamp was extremely large, and a thin layer of water almost covered the area of nearly hundreds of square kilometers. There seemed to be a lot of water here, with dozens of rivers crisscrossing it, and countless small islands protruding from sleep were covered with plants with bright flowers. Around these plants, small insects as numerous as dark clouds were flying around in the air. This insect seemed to be slightly different from the one in the frozen swamp before, but it should be the same kind. The primitive people did not take another step into the unknown swamp. Carrying ancient animal skin bags on their backs, they walked around the swamp for a long time. Guo Sen noticed that they used an old trick that Guo Sen had seen before. These people took out a large number of ruby-like small fruits from their animal skins, crushed them with their palms, and smeared a large amount of juice that flowed out on their bodies. The effect was immediate. The small insects that were originally stuck to their animal skins now wanted to fly dozens of meters away. Guo Sen was very familiar with this scene. Not long after, batches of primitive people came here one by one, carrying animal skin bags full of insect honey back to the side of the warehouse again and again. Then, someone took over the animal skin bags that were about to overflow and poured the insect honey into the jar. Okay. Guo Sen knew that the case was solved. These primitive people really traveled thousands of miles for love to satisfy their appetite. Running so far, just for honey? Exclamation mark. You are really great. Guo Sen expressed his sincere admiration for these greedy primitive people. In the pursuit of food, these primitive people are far ahead of other races. Insect honey and wine go together for eternity. From the distant frozen swamp, riding those huge turtle dragons, they traveled thousands of miles to the hinterland of the Howling Land and worked hard to collect insect honey. What kind of spirit is this? The spirit of a foodie. Guo Sen looked at them, and then looked at the primitive people who were about to arrive here, and the primitive people who had just set out from the turtle dragon. He really admired these people who were eating. Why did the aperture of the primitive people who had just set out from the turtle dragon not move? Guo Sen quickly turned his sight over there. As a result, before he got close, he heard a huge roar and a terrible scream. Damn. What's going on? Guo Sen quickly looked at the ground. The primitive people with extremely fierce eyes held tridents and were slaughtering a creature that he was very familiar with. Black werewolves. Black werewolves again. This group of intelligent creatures that seemed to never die appeared in front of Guo Sen again. However, just like last time, they were slaughtered unilaterally by the primitive people, and they didn't even have a chance to fight back. They were beaten into briquettes by the trident. No matter how they attacked, it was in vain. In the end, they could only escape. Guo Sen suddenly understood why the primitive people attacked the Black Wolf tribe directly when they saw it. They probably encountered these entangled, fierce and cunning guys more than once on their way to their destination, so they chose to do this at the first time. Guo Sen's sight was too high. He overlooked this howling land. From witnessing the bloody battle between the White Wolf tribe and the Black Wolf tribe at the beginning, he understood the intrigues and conspiracies. After discovering the Panda Wolf man who was a hybrid of the Black and White Wolf tribe, and the primitive people who came to this continent as foodies, Guo Sen had foreseen that the future collision of civilizations on this continent would probably be much more intense than it is now. The Black Wolf tribe did not become extinct as imagined. As dangerous element, will they bring endless disasters to the White Wolf tribe in the future as before? The White Wolf clan, which needs a long time to recover from the trauma of the war, will probably have various conflicts with the foodie primitive people soon after losing the enemy of the Black Wolf clan. Will there be another long war between them? Hiding in the valley far away from the three warlike races, the Panda Wolf clan, who gradually put civilization on the right track, what position will they have in the history of civilization in this howling land? After solving many doubts, Guo Sen found that he had various different guesses about the races on this continent. However, these all depend on the passage of time to slowly prove whether these guesses will happen. The history of civilization is full of uncertainty. This has been proved since the encounter with these intelligent creatures 300 years ago. Guo Sen thought of this and looked at the land of mines with many islands and extremely strange landforms. There lived dwarves with innate talents in mining and metallurgy. Of course, he did not forget that there are also fish-headed monsters with arms, and intelligent creatures such as black-haired and red-haired apes. 300 years have passed. What has become of the civilization of the dwarves living on the plateau? With doubt in his mind, he shifted his gaze and first came to the area where he had seen the fish-headed monster last time. He also immediately saw the island reef ring that was once a hotbed for multicellular organisms. Chapter 144 Surprise or not? Surprise or not? Guo Sen looked at the island reef ring in front of him and suddenly thought of a word. The sea changes. In the torrent of time, nothing will hardly change. Even if GUOSEN did not deliberately use various weather factors and geological factors to influence the landforms on his sphere, would occasionally give him some surprises or confusion. For example, the island reef ring in front of him now. Its area seems to have expanded by nearly 5 or 6 times, and has become a nearly closed wide island ring, with the widest point reaching 20 to 30 meters. When I saw it 300 years ago, the island reef was only a narrow strip of a few meters wide, and the beach near the surrounding inland sea was only a symbolic point. But now, this wide beach covered with white sand, under the beating of the white waves of the blue sea, really looks like a standard golden coast suitable for tourism and vacation. GUOSEN remembered that the last time he saw the group of fish-headed monsters with silver white scales all over their bodies, flat heads, and human arms, was here. However, before the fish-headed monster came out, there were those green translucent bugs that would dig holes on the beach and then applaud for love inside. When GUOSEN thought about this, as if they were summoned by him, tens of thousands of those seemingly unchanging bugs crawled onto the beach with the rise and fall of the waves. Damn. They came at the right time. Before meeting this group of bugs, GUOSEN felt that he would not have any intensive phobia when he saw anything, but only when these fat and stupid things gathered together, he would feel extremely uncomfortable. After this group of bugs with huge purple mouths came ashore, the first thing they did was to make a collective hole that GUOSEN was very familiar with. Not long after, countless holes that could accommodate 2 bugs appeared on the beach, which had become many times wider. TSK, 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 a large-scale applause for love scene. This is it. GUOSEN saw the bugs enter the cave 2 by 2, and then indescribable scenes and indescribable sounds were played inside. This sense of deja vu made GUOSEN feel as if he had not actually pushed time back more than 300 years. He couldn't help but wonder, would the group of fish-headed monsters come to the shore to encircle and suppress these bugs? However, GUOSEN saw that a larger number of fish-headed monsters crawled out of the waves and came to the beach collectively. Oh, he began to doubt that he was actually a summoner, not the will of the planet. The shiny scales on the fish-headed monsters shone under the light of the stars, and their mouths with countless sharp teeth opened and closed, as if they were breathing. GUOSEN suddenly remembered that the last time he went to the dwarves, his passive language translation ability was upgraded. If these fish-headed monsters were intelligent creatures, then he moved his eyes closer to the fish-headed monsters, wanting to hear if they had language ability. However, all he could hear was their wheezing exhalations. These guys actually breathe with their lungs. Alas. It seems that they are not as good as the sheep men who can only make yi sounds, and they can't even make a sound. Are they really without wisdom? Using their arms and hands to support their bodies, and exerting force with their huge tails like fish, the fish-headed monsters moved hard on the beach, as if they would not give up until they achieved their goal. Stupid and dull. They seemed to have no plans or ideas. They just went straight to the caves. Even if some of them accidentally fell, they were trampled by the fish monsters behind them, and then became food, to be torn and bitten. GUOSEN watched these crazy fish-headed monsters pounce into the caves of the big bugs and enjoy the food, and he couldn't help sighing in his heart. He seemed to have thought too much. The fish-headed monsters seemed to be half human half fish monsters that grew arms by chance. This performance seemed to have nothing to do with wisdom. He couldn't imagine what it would be like if these fish-headed monsters really established a civilization. A high-tech Atlantis? Or a tribe with seaweed as their home, and the seabed as their tribe? I'll wait until they finished their meal, then go take a look. GUOSEN patiently listened to all the screams that turned into gnawing and tearing sounds. After a while, all the fish-headed monsters finished their meal, crawled to the seaside, and successfully entered the water as the waves receded. GUOSEN's sight followed them all the time, entering the seabed hundreds of meters deep. He felt that the seabed of this ocean surrounded by islands and reefs should not be the gathering place for these guys. After all, this place is too small. Sure enough, after the fish-headed monsters swam for a while, they followed a cylindrical waterway carved out of the rock wall, and came to the sea outside the islands and reefs. Wait, a cylindrical waterway? GUOSEN suddenly remembered, isn't this the place where the ancient giant rockfish passed? The walls of the waterway are smooth, and not even a seaweed grows, as if it has always been cleaned. The ancient giant rockfish. Speaking of which, he really didn't see the figure of that thing this time. Last time, it had a huge body, and had clearly eaten a few large insects that had returned to the sea by chance. This time, it really didn't show its face. Could it be that it didn't like this little bit of meat? Guo Sen really wanted to catch one and put it on the shore to observe and study it carefully this time, but it seems that he can only wait until next time. With some regrets, he continued to follow the nearly 10,000 fish-headed monsters swimming collectively to the deep sea. However, the fish and insects in the ocean with different appearances and extremely ugly still made him keep muttering. Too ugly, too scary, no beauty. Even if there was one that looked like a shark, he would have tolerated it, but now look, everyone looks uglier than an anglerfish, and the insects are even ugly to the sky. Guo Sen decided to ignore it. Ignore it. No matter how ugly it is still life. Slowly evolve. Maybe it will be better in the future? But then again, are there so many insects on the seabed of the earth? His eyes followed these fish-headed monsters and kept moving forward. Finally, the fish-headed monsters stopped near a shallow seabed with abundant seaweed and then scattered. Guo Sen looked around. There were all kinds of watergrass, and watergrass. Damn. Could this be the tribe of these stupid guys? He watched these fish-headed monsters wandering among the watergrass, looking idle, just like real fish. The questions in his mind also got the final answer. The arms of these guys evolved unintentionally. Intelligence? Civilization? Tribe? Sorry, none of them. At this moment, a muffled sound suddenly came from the water. A large number of fruit-like things fell onto the water. Chapter 145. Is it such a coincidence? Guo Sen's side quickly emerged from the water. He found that what was floating on the water was indeed fruit, or to be exact, fruit. The fish-headed monsters also swam to the surface at the same time and began to fight for the gift of nature with their claws. No. Guo Sen looked up. He saw a large group of ugly creatures covered with black hair and walking semi-upright a few dozen meters away. There was no doubt that this was the group of black-haired apes. They were throwing all kinds of fruits into the water, just like they did 300 years ago, as if they were feeding fish. Deja vu. Deja vu. Guo Sen felt that, after coming to this mining area, the sense of deja vu kept appearing, one after another. However, the number of black-haired apes, is it much more than before? Guo Sen remembered that the last time he saw this group of guys, there were only a few dozen people. Now, there are a lot of black people in the bushes on the shore. A simple count shows that there are also 300 or 400 people. They are quite fertile. But think about it, it has been 300 years after all, and this number is just enough to meet the standard. If it weren't for the red-haired apes, thousands of people would probably not be able to stop them. Thinking of the red-haired apes, Guo Sen also remembered that this group of black-haired humanoids were actually slaves of the red-haired apes. He saw that each black-haired ape was holding a large number of unknown fruits in his arms and seemed to be ready to leave. Sure enough, after feeding the fish-headed monsters for a while, these guys swaggered into the jungle. They must have gone to the red-haired apes to report. Guo Sen concluded. These guys who have been enslaved for 300 years actually don't get any sympathy. Obviously, the red-haired apes gave them so much freedom that they could choose to escape at any time. But how long did they run in the jungle last time? And they went back to report. Guo Sen's eyes followed them closely. Suddenly, he heard a strange voice. Chief, our fruits, we brought back, this time are more, a lot. Isn't this language? Exclamation mark. Guo Sen looked at these guys who were walking quickly in the jungle, a little bit unbelievable. Could it be that these black-haired apes were making noises? No, that's right. We have quite a lot this time. A black-haired ape that was a little smaller nodded. Guo Sen was full of WTF in his heart. What's going on? Black-haired apes have language ability? No way. This is impossible. Go back quickly. God will be angry and will wait impatiently. The black-haired ape who was called the leader said again. WTF. There is a new term. This group of black-haired apes who stutter. There is also a god. But God will be angry and can't wait. This can't be about those red-haired apes, right? Guo Sen had question marks in his mind one after another. Every time he saw these intelligent creatures, his questions became more and more as his understanding deepened. However, when he got the answers to these questions, the sense of relief and pleasure made him unable to stop. He began to be interested in this black-haired ape who he looked down on before. Since there is a so-called leader, the ability to communicate in language, and the so-called god of faith, it means that this civilization has a certain foundation. What kind of symbiotic civilization can they produce with the red-haired apes? Guo Sen decided not to look at the dwarves who were mining, but to focus on these black-haired apes. Following the black-haired apes who were constantly advancing in the jungle, he soon found an open space in the hilly area. At the bottom of the tall trees on the hill, there were quite a few small houses built with simple wooden stakes, and many black-haired apes were busy there. Isn't this? Yes, it's the gathering place of the red-haired apes. Wait, where are the red-haired apes? Guo Sen searched for a long time in the houses, trees and nearby areas in this area, but he didn't find any trace of the red-haired apes. They disappeared? Did they go out together? Or, while Guo Sen was thinking, his eyes saw a strange thing in a large open space in the center of this simple tribe. It was a stone statue with arms and legs and a lifelike face. This nearly 1 meter tall stone statue even had an extremely fine head. Not to mention the nose, eyes, and mouth. Even the beard was clearly carved. Looking closely, there seemed to be a gap in the neck, mouth, arms, legs, and each finger joint, as if it could turn its head and move around at any time. Obviously, this would never be something that any race on this planet could make. This extremely advanced carving method might. Guo Sen suddenly felt that this thing was so familiar. Could it be that? He looked in the direction of the distant plateau in the mining hills, and then looked over here. Damn it. I remembered. Isn't this the stone puppet that I made to guide the dwarves? That is, the so-called god of the hill. He actually ran here? This is too coincidental, right? Why did I throw this puppet here after I finished using it? While Guo Sen was sighing, he suddenly found that there seemed to be a pile of strange dark yellow things under the stone statue, and he couldn't tell what they were. With a thought, he gently peeled off the soil covering one of the strangest shaped objects. Skull. Skull. Exclamation mark. Guo Sen cleaned up a few more pieces. Spine, leg bones, hip bones. This is obviously the skeleton of a humanoid creature. However, when Guo Sen cleaned up another skull, it was not right again. The third, the fourth. There were 5 skeletons gathered in this place. Moreover, each skeleton seemed to be very wide. Obviously not the black-haired ape man. Guo Sen suddenly understood something. Could these be the remains of the red-haired ape men? After all, they were the only ones with such a large body and human-like skeletons in the vicinity. Another point, from the fact that these bones seemed to be crushed and broken by something, Guo Sen suddenly had an idea. Could it be that the stone puppet he threw out at the beginning just happened to kill these 5 red-haired ape men? Isn't this too bizarre? Just as Guo Sen was sighing, a large group of black-haired apes suddenly came to the open space. It was so dark that it was hard to tell how many people there were. Then, countless fruits wrapped in large leaves were held respectfully by dozens of black-haired apes and placed at the feet of the stone statue. After placing them, these people, along with all the people behind them, all knelt on the ground. Great God, sir. All the black-haired apes bowed to the statue and shouted in unison. Chapter 146 Sir, times have changed. This is really ironic. Guo Sen looked at the black-haired apes bowing to the stone statue with an extremely pious look, and couldn't help but feel this way. This stone statue puppet made by himself, which is obviously a god worshipped by the dwarf tribe, is now being worshipped by these humanoid creatures. Is this a moral decline or a human nature? Guo Sen was speechless. This is too much. Judging from the current level of worship by the black-haired apes, it is probably just as his prediction of the god is a crow's mouth. At that time, the stone lump of the god of the hill, that was used and discarded, was thrown into the primeval forest by Guo Sen, and it happened to kill the red-haired apes who had been enslaving the black-haired apes. As a result, this race was able to multiply to such a large number and even had a preliminary civilization. What the hell is this? How low is the probability of the current result? Guo Sen kept complaining in his heart. An unintentional act actually caused such a dramatic development. If the black-haired apes can develop high technology in the future, how should he be counted? However, can they really develop any advanced civilization? Guo Sen carefully observed the tribe again. In addition to the simple houses made of wooden stakes and tree bark, he also found wooden sticks made of thick branches and longer vertical sticks made by the black apes. Apart from that, there seemed to be nothing that could show their civilization. There were no stones nearby, which was probably the reason why the black-haired apes could not make stone tools. Wooden sticks could only scare animals with weaker combat power, and from the things left in the primitive tribe of these guys, they were just a vegetarian tribe that only ate plant roots and fruits. This reminded Guo Sen of the fruit and vegetable paste tribe, which was also a vegetarian tribe. But the black-haired apes could not even use fire and had no stone tools. They were more than a little behind others. The level of civilization between them was more than one level lower. Not to mention compared with the most powerful and advanced white wolf tribe that used meteorite weapons. If the speed of global civilization development continues to move forward at the same pace as it is now, the black-haired apes will probably fall further and further behind other races in the future. So, should we guide and influence their civilization? Guo Sen only took a second to give the answer. No, not all races' civilizations need to be guided and promoted. Some are naturally well developed, such as dwarves, sheep people, and primitive people encountered later. When dealing with their civilizations, Guo Sen did not participate too much. And if the black-haired apes must be guided, the difficulty will be even greater than that of the previous lizard people. After all, when the lizard people met, they were already in the Stone Age, and they could make shields, twist ropes to make things, and had a sense of shame. But what do these black-haired apes have? Baby walkers are not a good thing. If you don't do it well, you will fall down, and if you do it well, you will have O-shaped legs. If you interfere too much, this is the result. Guo Sen no longer wants to be a walker, although he did do it. However, whether it is the lizard people or the white wolf tribe, compared with the infant level of the black-haired ape people, they are all at the level of 5 or 6-year-old children. Even in the modern world of Earth, aren't there still many extremely backward tribes in the primeval forest? Their civilization is frozen in the primitive moment. They will neither integrate into modern civilization, nor take the initiative to contact it. Instead, they will be extremely repulsive to any high-tech things. If this planet needs such a race, Guo Sen believes that this group of black-haired apes may be a very suitable candidate. Guo Sen made up his mind. He looked away from this tribe. The dwarves living in the caves have a more advanced civilization in the land of the Ore Hills. The last time I saw them, these guys had learned to smelt iron and entered the Iron Age. Their civilization was also unusually high. So, after 300 years, what has their civilization evolved into? Guo Sen raised his eyes and looked at the vast plateau protruding in the center of the continent. The blue grassland is endless, with countless sparkling rivers crisscrossing, and countless animals living on this grassland. It didn't take long for him to find the place where he saw the dwarves last time, the Iron Ore Cave. However, there was no music between metal and stone. It was silent. It was as if it had never been mined before. Guo Sen's sight came to the inside of the mine and suddenly found that it seemed to have collapsed. The originally narrow mine tunnel had become a very wide one, but going further inside, nearly half of the area inside the circular cave was tightly blocked by boulders. Mining is really dangerous, especially in an era of extremely backward productivity. This is a completely high-risk behavior. But for the dwarves, this is an extremely necessary behavior. After all, their civilization is built on this ore. No dwarves were found in this mine, so Guo Sen had to start looking again. The dwarves tribe seemed to be not far away from here. Guo Sen began to search the area in a carpet-like manner. However, before he went too far, he found a strange thing galloping on the blue grassland. It was not moving very fast, but it drew a long track, like a meteor across the night sky. Guo Sen only took a glance to see the whole picture of this thing. Is that a car? Two round wheels made of wood were spinning rapidly, and on top of them was a simple frame made of several wooden boards. A dwarf with a long beard stood on the frame, whipping the khaki-colored animal that was pulling the car and crawling rapidly with a branch like a whip. Guo Sen looked carefully and found that the animal with strong and slender limbs actually had a lizard's head. Damn. Guo Sen thought he was seeing things. But what else could this guy with khaki scales all over his body and a big tail be but a lizard? A lizard pulling a car and a dwarf standing on it. This scenery was really fantasy style. However, the dwarf finally appeared, and Guo Sen didn't have to look for him hard anymore, although his appearance posture was really a bit too cute. So why did the dwarf drive, and where was he going? Guo Sen followed the car as it sped past. After crossing half of the grassland, it suddenly stopped. In front of him, a huge castle appeared, which was built by hollowing out almost the entire mountain. Chapter 147 Seemingly True. When Guo Sen was on Earth, he had seen countless majestic and historically charming ancient castles in pictures he browsed online. But he never thought that he would see a castle again just 300 years after the last time he saw this group of dwarves. This time he saw it with his own eyes. However, compared with those well-preserved, beautiful, and practical huge castles on Earth, this castle in front of him did not seem so good looking. Or to be more realistic, it was just one word: ugly. This castle, which was carved out of the side of a huge mountain, did not have the pointed roof that Guo Sen liked, nor did it have a wooden suspension bridge or moat. There were only towering blue-white walls, countless black windows carved out, and a flat roof that looked tasteless. Even the gate was only carved halfway on the wall, with a few rough ropes hanging from it for the dwarves to use when entering and leaving. Okay. Guo Sen knew that this thing could not be forced. It was good enough to have it. Why would he want a bicycle? As an extremely solid castle, this shape is enough. At least Guo Sen can be sure that if the ancient people on Earth came here without hot weapons, they would probably take a lot of time to break through this castle. It is even possible that they could not attack it. Guo Sen sighed at the dwarves' superb rock destruction and carving skills while observing this extremely solid castle. The car gradually ran to the bottom of the city wall and stopped again. The dwarf in the car jumped off the frame and took out a piece of dried meat from the animal skin he was wearing and threw it to the mouth of the lizard. The dwarf quickly grabbed a rope and climbed up while the lizard lay on the ground to rest. Guo Sen didn't know what the dwarves who used lizards as transportation would think if they saw the lizardman, but if the lizardman had a hot temper and saw the dwarves treating their compatriots like this, they would definitely have a violent conflict with these guys. The dwarf was agile and soon reached the gate. There were hundreds of dwarves walking around on the wide city wall, equipped with a large number of hammers, and it seemed that these were the guards guarding here. These people did not show any special expression to the dwarf, who had just climbed up, as if they did not see him, and let him climb to the gate and go in directly. Looking at this castle, Guo Sen suddenly felt a little strange. In this primitive era, is it necessary to build such a solid castle? What are they defending? Guo Sen thought carefully about the first time he saw them 300 years ago. At that time, these dwarves had no enemies. Even animals that could fight with them did not appear, not to mention various other humanoid creatures. If there were really no enemies, why build such a place? If you just want a solid tribe, it would be much simpler to cut down a tree on the ground and make one, than to spend so much effort to carve out such a huge castle, right? Moreover, they were still patrolling on the city wall. It seemed that they would do this only if there was a real danger of enemy attack. So, who was the enemy? Guo Sen decided to go to the guards on the city wall first to listen to any information. At this moment, he unexpectedly saw the dwarf who had just driven the car from the passageway. He stumbled up. His face seemed very panicked. What did you say? They came out. The dwarf with the longest beard, wearing armor made of metal sheets, seemed a little unbelievable. Yes, chief. I saw that they had built a slope to escape from there where they were. Going down the slope, I saw their troops gathering. The dwarf who was driving the car shouted. The dwarf leader pondered for a moment and kept walking back and forth on the city wall. Chief. The surrounding dwarves all gathered together, and their expressions were also extremely nervous. Each of them was wearing metal armor, but compared to the leader, they looked much simpler. Toru, how many of them are there? The leader was silent for a while, and asked the dwarf who was driving the car again. Chief, more than 10,000. Everyone around let out a low cry. 10,000? Pass my order down. All hunters, collectors, workers in workshops and mines, come back. We have to defend our strong city. The leader finally gave the order, and everyone around rushed down the city wall, and hurried to notify them. But the dwarf named Toru remained where he was. Toru, why are you? The leader was still puzzled. Chief, they look different from what we saw before. They even have. Guo Sen didn't hear what they said later, but the doubts in his heart became deeper and deeper. What exactly is this so-called they? As the enemy of this group of dwarves, there are actually 10,000 troops? In this primitive era, what kind of people can have 10,000 troops to attack this castle? In Guo Sen's memory, there was no such race 300 years ago that could threaten the survival of the dwarves. Even ferocious beasts would hide far away when they saw these humanoids who were short in stature, but could use fierce moves such as flying hammer rain. Besides, which beast would send out 10,000 people to attack? That is the humanoid? Or is it a tribe that separated from this dwarf tribe and came to attack? However, in more than 300 years, how many generations can the dwarf tribe of several hundred people reproduce? Questions come one after another. Guo Sen knew that, unless he found the enemy of this group of dwarves, these questions would take a long time to be solved. Leaving this magnificent and ugly castle, Guo Sen looked in the direction of the grassland, where the dwarf was first found driving. He went back in the opposite direction, and suddenly found a huge pit surrounded by heavy forests. This shape is like being hit by an unusually huge fist. And the depth of this circular pit with a radius of nearly 30 or 40 kilometers is nearly 100 meters. It is covered by a dense sea of trees, and the ground is almost invisible. The sounds of countless animals and birds came from it, which seemed extremely noisy. Could it be that the army that the dwarf said came out of this huge pit? Guo Sen took such a rough look, and did not find any shadow of intelligent creatures, nor did he hear any special movement. Looking into the distance, there were endless mountains with almost no vegetation. It seemed that the only way was to search carefully. Just as Guo Sen was thinking this, he heard a howl from the huge pit that was very familiar to him. Chapter 148, Hammer Again. If Guo Sen was asked to choose the most unpleasant sound among all the creatures on his sphere, he would choose the howling of the Black Wolf tribe without hesitation. That kind of howling sound itself is savage, cruel, and barbaric. He has heard it countless times in the land of howling, and he is tired of it. However, he never thought that he would still hear that familiar howling sound in this land of mines far away from the land of howling. Logically speaking, this is impossible. On Guo Sen's sphere, there is a land of hot lizards between the land of howling and the land of mine. Even if the Black Wolf tribe is lucky enough to cross the vast ocean from the land of howling, it will take an extremely long time to cross the land of hot lizards to come here. What's more, there is a natural chasm several hundred meters high between the plains of the land of mine and the place where the dwarves are. Besides, if they really want to migrate, the area of the land of howling is so vast, and there are obviously many places to go. Why do they have to travel through mountains and rivers to come to this place? The more Guo Sen thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this was impossible. But the howling sound was like a provocation, getting closer and closer to him, and getting louder and louder. After a short while, a large group of black shadows appeared in front of Guo Senator. They looked like the Black Wolf clan. The Black Wolf-like head, sharp teeth, blood-red pupils. Wait, why are they lying on the ground? Why are they carrying people on their backs? In front of Guo Sen, nearly 10,000 Black Wolf clan were lying on the ground and running fast with their limbs, and almost most of them were carrying a short man with long messy hair and no beard on their backs. Damn, what's going on? Invasion. Revenge. Invasion. Revenge. Those short humans raised black weapons and roared in unison on the backs of the Black Wolf clan, seemingly with endless hatred and anger. Guo Sen knew very well that this short human was the dwarf he had just seen, but without that big beard. However, riding a dog and rotting pants. To be honest, the Black Wolf clan looked like a dog when they were being ridden. These dwarves are really brave. However, the strange combination of dwarves and black werewolves suddenly made Guo Sen a little confused. No matter how backward the black werewolf civilization was, no matter how ignorant their wisdom was, they should not be reduced to being the mounts of the dwarves, right? And there was another point. Why could they, who could walk upright, run on all fours? After finally standing upright, the structure of their limbs should not allow them to run, and even if they could run, their speed could not be guaranteed. But the lightning fast black werewolves seemed to violate this rule. This was completely unreasonable. Regardless of where the dwarves riding them came from, Guo Sen had already fallen into a vortex of doubts. While Guo Sen was making various assumptions in his mind, the group of dwarves riding wolves had already reached the edge of the giant pit. However, they did not stop, but turned to the side, and walked around the edge of the giant pit. Guo Sen saw at this time that there seemed to be a slope made of countless wooden stakes, boulders, and soil between the giant pit and the flat land above. Obviously, this slope was man-made. Nearly 10,000 black wolves carried the dwarves and rushed up the slope, about to rush out. Guo Sen saw a black wolf at the end of the team who was running slower. On his back sat a fat dwarf who was running out of breath. He moved his mind. The black wolves and dwarves instantly came to a height of several hundred meters. Their consciousness also stopped instantly. Looking at the two guys who had no spirit in their eyes, no howling or shouting at all, and were completely controlled, Guo Sen was also a little surprised. He just thought that, if he caught these two, they would not shout. Unexpectedly, this power of thought actually worked. His ability seemed to have evolved again. Guo Sen did not analyze his ability at this time. He decided to solve the problem that bothered him first. That is, why the black wolf became the mount of the dwarves, and what was this group of dwarves doing. Only after solving this, he could analyze his current ability with peace of mind. He focused his eyes on the black wolf. Guo Sen suddenly realized that he seemed to have thought too complicated before. This guy with a black werewolf head is a wolf with short black hair. Compared with the same kind in the Howling Land, this wolf is obviously larger, and its limbs do not look like walking upright. To put it simply, it is just like its canine counterparts, knocking its knees at the back. Not to mention running, there is no problem running wildly. Guo Sen used another ability again, to explore the thoughts of this black wolf. However, there was nothing. The guy with the face of the black wolf tribe in Canali is at best a high imitation beast. But is this possible? Why are there two species on the sphere that look the same, but one cannot speak and is an intelligent species in the Stone Age, while the other is just like an ordinary beast? Even if they are on two continents, this should never be the case. Guo Sen did not expect that. After solving the problem of why the Black Wolf tribe became the mount of the dwarves, a newer and bigger problem emerged. Moreover, with Guo Sen's current cognition, he could not understand the rationality of such a thing. However, if you waste your energy on something you can't understand, Guo Sen thinks that you are also wasting your time. He turned his attention to the fat dwarf. He was holding a hammer that shone with black light under the light of the stars. Guo Sen was also familiar with this thing. It was meteorite iron. It was also a product of the, or used and applied by the White Wolf clan. Guo Sen focused his eyes on the huge pit, and suddenly understood how it was formed. Meteorite. It was probably another meteorite rich in iron. So these dwarves can use meteorite iron to make this kind of hammer. But why do these dwarves like to use hammers? This thing has a hammer? Guo Sen complained about the dwarves in his heart, while reading the consciousness of the fat dwarf. We are the haters, and we will destroy, together with the Bok Beast. 4. Fear, revival, retribution is coming. Guo Sen suddenly found that his ability could only read the dwarf's intermittent thoughts. This was not surprising. In the fight between the Black Wolf and the White Wolf, what he could read was what these people were thinking at the moment. However, it was the first time that the dwarf spoke so intermittently. But there was still a little information in these words. This group of dwarves called themselves hate bearers, and the beast with the head of the Black Wolf was the Bok Beast. Although it was not known why these dwarves called themselves such a name, they seemed to have a lot of stories with the dwarves who had the castle they had seen before. The guy called Toru in the castle before was probably an intelligence officer or something like that. The 10,000 troops he mentioned were probably this group of dwarfs riding on Bok beasts, right? The army led by the hate bearers seemed to want to revive their clan and then destroy the clan that owned the huge castle. That should be right. But what is fear? Forget it, ignore it. It can be foreseen that this will be another large-scale battle. Just this point is enough to satisfy Guo Sen's curiosity. Chapter 149 Retribution is coming. The dwarves named the haters rode on black wolves they called Bok beasts and came to the surface from the huge crater created by the meteorite along the slopes built by countless wooden stakes and filled with soil. They did not choose to march quickly, but gradually gathered together. Guo Sen also took the opportunity to put the fat dwarf and black wolf under his control at the end of the team and did not attract anyone's attention. He also released his control in an instant. The fat dwarf and the black wolf stayed at the end of the team quietly, as if nothing had happened. However, the black wolf seemed to be unable to withstand the weight of the fat dwarf, panting and shaking his legs. Guo Sen saw that several dwarves whose hair was about to fall to the ground suddenly rode black wolves from the front to the back of the team. Then, they came straight to the side of the fat dwarf that Guo Sen had just controlled. Huh. Damn, what's going on? Guo Sen was very surprised. Was this fat guy going to be beaten because he was lagging behind? However, Chief, the rock hunters must have known about our actions. So, how can we lure them out? A bald dwarf asked the fat man with a respectful expression. Tep is right, Chief. Should we use that thing? Another dwarf with a big face and melon seed eyes also came over. Guo Sen was really screwed. Okay, it's not the White Wolf tribe. The fat guy who was lagging behind was actually the leader? What the hell is this? The probability is too low. Okay. Obviously, this bald guy looks more like a leader. What is the virtue of the fat guy? Of course we have to lure them out, and of course we have to use that thing. The fat leader replied, and the words were actually quite ambiguous. Yes, Chief. Understood, Chief. Leave it to you. You know what I mean. The fat leader muttered again. The two looked at each other and nodded. Leader, then we will do as you think. For revenge. To eliminate the rock survivors. Retribution is coming. The fat leader suddenly raised his arms and shouted. Retribution is coming. Retribution is coming. All the dwarfs shouted at the same time. This also caused the black wolves to howl at the sky together. However, the sound was high and low, uneven. After roaring for a while, the team quieted down again. Baldhead and Melonite led the other 6 subordinates who followed and returned to the front of the team. The leader said that we must first go to the giant city of the rock survivors and lure those bastards out of the city. Of course, we need that. The two commanded everyone at the front of the team. Retribution is coming. Retribution is coming. Everyone shouted loudly again. Guo Sen was very puzzled. What kind of slogan is this retribution is coming? At least come up with a phrase like the great hater or the hater is invincible and invincible. What the hell is this retribution is coming? What can it reflect? However, whether it is the one who bears the grudge or retribution is coming, these two words can show the anger and hatred of these beardless dwarves towards the rock dwellers living in the castle. What exactly happened here? It is estimated that when the two armies face each other later, they may be able to get a glimpse of it. Guo Sen decided to continue observing. So far, whether it is the lizardman or the White Wolf tribe, they have established powerful tribes after 300 years, and at the same time, a fairly large-scale war has broken out. The development of civilization must go through war. War will in turn stimulate the development of civilization. As long as there are contradictions and desires between these intelligent creatures, wars will not stop happening. Peace in the true sense will never come. In this ancient era, when civilization was extremely backward, war could promote the reproduction of the population, the evolution of weapons smelting technology, and people's brains to do all the measures and methods to avoid being killed. Death, or life. Survival, or destruction. Contradictions always go hand in hand. Whether it is lizardmen, white wolfmen, dwarves, or various intelligent creatures that GUOSEN will see in the future, they will all experience war and peace, and this will happen repeatedly in all ages. The army of dwarves riding on black wolves, along this wide-blue grassland, gradually walked towards the direction of the castle, where the rock dwellers were. GUOSEN counted carefully, and found that not all black wolves had dwarves on their backs. Their total number was less than 6,000. However, these black wolves named Bok beasts seemed to obey the words of these dwarves abnormally. Although they looked so fierce, they were as obedient as little puppies in front of the dwarves. GUOSEN guessed that, if they were to fight a wild war with the rock dwellers, these black wolves would probably become a major factor affecting the war situation. The premise is that the rock dwellers would really come out of the solid and huge castle. GUOSEN currently couldn't think of any way for this group of beardless dwarves to blast open the door of the rock dwellers. Even if they could really do it, they would probably pay a considerable price, right? Baldhead and Melon Eyes had said before that they would use that to force the rock dwellers out. What exactly was that? GUOSEN looked through the legion carefully. Apart from the sledgehammers they carried, they didn't have anything unusual on them. This was strange. What method could be used? There were too few clues now. GUOSEN returned to the giant pit and searched carefully. As a result, he really found a very large tribe. Unlike the rock dwellers who made a castle out of the huge rock, the dwarves here were very similar to the White Wolf clan, and they all used wooden stakes to make the walls of the tribe. However, their various wooden buildings were not so sophisticated, and their technology was not as good as that of the White Wolf clan 300 years ago. With so many warriors going out, only the old, weak, women and children were left here. These people did what they had to do, as if nothing had happened. GUOSEN noticed that not far from this tribe, there was another relatively small tribe. In this tribe, which was also surrounded by several meter-high tree stumps, there were no buildings, only hundreds of black Bok beasts. Several dwarves were holding a pile of dried meat and throwing it to the beasts. Oh, they are tamed. I see. GUOSEN also understood why the black wolves were willing to become mounts. Looking at everything in front of him, he suddenly had a guess. Are the dwarves in this huge pit a tribe that was exiled to this deep pit? Otherwise, why would they keep saying retribution is coming and call themselves hatred bearers? It seems that this guess should be almost right. Chapter 150, Moldy. The army of the haters was huge. They sang ugly and strange songs with completely incompatible lyrics, which made GUOSEN feel very uncomfortable. Compared with the dwarves living in the sturdy castle, these haters didn't seem to care how sloppy their appearance was. The animal skins on their bodies seemed to have turned into hard blocks, and they were dyed with a strange color by mud, blood, and liquids of various colors that could not be seen. Except for the beards that were shaved clean, their hair and eyebrows were very messy, especially the bald guy in the lead. His hair was extremely elegant and moving. GUOSEN couldn't help but think of a lyric on Earth. Like a seaweed, seaweed sways with the waves. Seaweed, seaweed dancing in the waves. If it weren't for the serious expressions on their faces and the fact that they lived on his sphere, GUOSEN would really think that this group of people was some kind of beggar gang on Earth. However, jokes are jokes. According to his speculation, this group of haters were the pathetic abandoned people who were expelled into the deep pit by the rock dwellers. The slope they just climbed, which was made of fallen tree trunks, soil, and stones, was probably just built. Whether it was this slope, the black wolves they tamed, or the exquisite and sharp weapons, it was obvious that the fugitives had been waiting for this day for a long time. They had made very thorough preparations. GUOSEN really couldn't imagine that he would encounter such a big thing just after arriving on this continent. He originally thought that he would have to spend a long time with the Suan people to observe their civilization, but he didn't expect that he seemed to have no time at all. I'm afraid that, if he wants to observe, he will have to wait until this battle is over. GUOSEN saw that when the fugitives crossed the grassland, a small force of nearly 500 people suddenly turned around and headed in another direction, taking a small path. Small path. Is it related to the thing they were talking about? He immediately recalled the words of Baldy and Melon-Eyed. If that thing is used, the Suan people will come out of the fortified city. What exactly is that? Guo Sen looked at everyone in the small army and found that they did not carry anything strange on them. If the dried meat that looked like it had grown hairy was considered, hey, you will get food poisoning. How long has this dried meat been stored? Is it okay? Food safety is very important, don't you understand? If you get sick, there is no point in fighting. Guo Sen complained wildly. However, it can also be seen that the haters have really prepared for this war for a long time. They have stored so much food for such a long time. It has been stored until it has grown moldy and hairy. If they are killed by the rockers because of diarrhea, then these haters will probably leave a heavy mark in the rockers' historical records. Guo Sen thinks this is very likely. He even took a look at the food in the bags on the backs of other dwarves with interest, and most of them were moldy. Oh, what can I do? It seems that it is really possible, my guess. His sight followed the special force again, a small army of 500 people, moving forward in this valley full of gravel and basically no more plants, except moss and weeds. Their goal seemed to be clear, but Guo Sen looked down at the direction these people were moving, and found that they seemed to be running straight to the east. Hey, getting farther and farther away. The tribe of the rock sitters is in the south. What are these people doing there? Even if they are looking for that thing, it's a bit too. The group walked for an hour, and the locked aperture continued to move eastward, farther and farther. Guo Sen didn't have the patience to distract himself to see what they were going to do all the way east, but once again locked on the main force of the group of resentful people who were walking and stopping, and turned his sight back to the rock sitters. On top of this castle, a state of war has been completely entered. The narrow and long wall is different from before. It is already densely packed with dwarves wearing helmets and armor. Each of them is hung with hammers, and their eyes are constantly searching the city, with extremely nervous expressions. Guo Sen stared at the helmets and armor of the dwarves, and couldn't help but be secretly surprised. This was the first time that an intelligent creature made a helmet on his sphere. As one of the most basic protective gear, the helmet is actually very important in protecting the most vulnerable part of humanoids, the head. In the course of the battle, if there is no protection of the helmet, even if the enemy's weapon is not sharp, even if it hits the head, it can achieve a certain killing effect. But if a helmet is worn, then this kind of accident, or damage beyond the scope of the weapon level, can be reduced or even avoided. What's more, the helmets of the dwarves of the rock are made of metal. Guo Sen has been amazed at the forging ability of these dwarves since 300 years ago. At that time, they could forge various iron objects with quite good craftsmanship. Whether it is the weapon hammer used in combat, or the nails made temporarily to fix the wood on the transport cart, and those various metal tools, it can be seen how outstanding their talent is in this regard. And now, they have actually made an iron helmet that can almost completely cover the entire head, leaving only the face and beard exposed, and it looks extremely strong. This helmet can be seen that, after being hammered thousands of times in their hands, it is quite suitable for almost everyone's head shape. Moreover, the helmet worn by the leader seen before actually has some patterns and designs carved on it, and even a water blue gem is inlaid on the top of the helmet. It takes both beauty and practicality into consideration. I have to say that the dwarves are really amazing. As for the armor, it is almost entirely made of iron. However, compared with the chainmail on the primitive people seen before, this overall flat, no up and down armor that can almost cover the whole body does not seem so outstanding. Guo Sen discovered that it seems that not every dwarf wears this kind of armor, but only people with higher status like the leader will wear it. He also realized that the level difference of the dwarf tribe is already quite large. Guo Sen is actually still a little dissatisfied with the dwarves' choice of weapons. It seems that these guys have not wanted to use their intelligence and wisdom to manufacture and research weapons since 300 years ago. They have always used hammers that make their heads hurt. The last time he saw these guys hunting, they had rained hammers on the heads of their prey. 300 years later, these dwarves are also equipped with hammers. Could it be that they want to throw hammers down from the city walls? Just thinking about it, I feel that this is really a bit absurd. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like, Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.